committee is Councilor Papalato, Councilor Campbell, Councilor Demers, and Councilor Toro.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. First before us tonight is a Mean Limousine Corporation, 112 Main Street, Woburn, for a application for a livery license. Can we get a speaker? Amin Tarase. Hold it, move on.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we suspend the regular order of business to move on to the next item on the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, second before us is the Woburn Host Lions Club, the special event permit for a road race at Mon Pond and area streets on October 20th, 2024. Request for waiver of umbrella liability insurance. This is an annual event. Frank tomorrow is.
Jeff Rulo, so Frank said he's running a couple minutes late. I don't know if we want to maybe.
Same action on that item?
Second.
I'd say 3 and 4.
That's all the phone.
I believe.
Okay, I'll amend my motion that we take items 3 and 4 collectively and take number 5 out of order.
Second.
Okay, motion for, before us, for People Fit LLC, for a special event permit for breast cancer awareness walk at Mon Pond and area streets on October 5th, 2024, with a request for waiver of umbrella liability insurance. Karen Agostino?
Yes.
Jump right in the seat.
Welcome. Thank you.
Can you just tell us a little bit about the event?
Sure, it's our first annual breast cancer awareness walk. It will start at 9 o'clock. Our members will come and register at between 8 and 8:30. It's the first year. I don't expect more than probably 30 to 40 people. It's a 2-mile walk, and a 1 mile or a 2-mile walk.
Any questions?
No.
I'll make a motion that we send that out to pass.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're all
Good
set.
luck.
Thank you very
Good luck
much.
with everything.
Thank you.
And then, sixth for us is the International Circle for Kids and Youth for a special event permit for a fashion show at Hong Kong Ice House Park on October 27th. We received a letter requesting withdrawal of this permit. This conflicts with the Woburn Halloween Parade, and they'll refile in the springtime. A motion to accept the letter.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And so this is withdrawn and put on file.
Number 1 is here. Make a motion to return to the regular order of business.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Amin Limousine Corporation?
Yes.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Just tell us a little bit about your business and your plans.
So I do limo service. I do pick up and drop off from the airport, and I need the permit.
Okay, is 112,
Main Street, Woburn.
okay, and that's your residence, you work out of your residence?
Correct.
And where are you gonna park the vehicle?
In my house, I have a driveway.
Okay. Any questions?
I have no questions.
No questions.
No questions.
I'll make a motion that the application for new livery license is sent out to pass.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
You are all set.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Good luck.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Good luck, sir.
Thank you very much.
3 and 4 piece out.
We know enough about 3 and 4 to move on.
Same.
Yeah, I mean, they're pretty common events. I think we all know that.
Third on the agenda, Woburn Host Lions Club, special event permit for Hong Kong Road Race in area streets, October 20th, with the request for waiver on umbrella liability.
Due to the fact that this is an existing event that's happened multiple years, I'll make a motion that we send this out to pass.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Fourth in front of us is the annual festival on Lake Common for a special event permit to allow the festival on Woburn Common and surrounding streets, November 30th, 2024, with the request for waiver of umbrella liability.
Same action.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Pass.
Always trying to say that that's into order.
Yeah, that was quick.
It's like a Tyson paper.
Oh, you run roll call.
That's it, we can get on the street. You tracking?
Thank you, Gordon.
Charlie, did you have an opportunity to drive to the square tonight?
I did, and I
Yes, I-
beeped at our fine
absolutely.
young officer Amanda.
The future.
She rode for the first time alone the other night. She was so excited.
That's why there's no traffic.
Well, I'm gonna call the Committee on
Very
Special
efficient.
Permits to order. I'm the chair, Darlene Mercer Kerwin, Ward 5. We also have Councilor Campbell, Councilor Viola, I don't see,
He's outside, he's.
the Councilor DeMambro, and Councilor Demers. We have one item on the agenda for tonight.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's
Do I have
minutes.
a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. One item on the agenda tonight, Drag 56, Dragon Court.
I texted.
Bear with me 1 second, folks. I have an email from the petitioners. There are some items we'll go over here tonight, but I'm going to open it up to the council. I think most of you know this is for a business, an audiovisual business at 56 Dragon Court. We have a letter from the planning board director. Everybody's seen that letter? Yes?
I make a motion to open it up to the full committee.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So essentially, the permit is for the request to park 5 commercial vehicles overnight for an audio-visual business, the way I understood it from the description the other evening, is these folks supply the audio-visual equipment. The employees will come pick up the product, leave their cars there, and then go off to the site. I'm gonna ask the petitioner if they don't mind to come up. How's your knee?
Okay.
Oh. There's a lot of surgeries going on. I hope you're being a compliant patient. Welcome.
Hi, Carrie Armstrong again for the petitioner, and this is Sean Armstrong, who's the president and owner of Creative AV. That will be the business on site.
So, attorney, if you could you give us just a quick overview again of your audiovisual business? I know you've been operating, you said in Malden for 20 years, at least 20 years.
Coming up on 20 years, yes.
And could you tell us, I know you're moving here because you've expanded the business. I'm gonna pass, thank you for providing these. These are pictures of the vans that will be parked there. I'm glad to see that they're marked.
Make a motion to accept and make part of the
Second.
record.
There are several here. All the same, okay. So if you could just take us through a little bit of,
Darlene.
all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. If you could just take us a little bit through the business, the kind of volume that you expect. There were questions about, the showroom that you're going to have and how many people you anticipate coming to the showroom. Could you just expand on it a little bit more than what we were able to get to at the council?
Sure, I'm actually gonna, if it's okay, I'll have Sean
Of course.
speak to that too.
Yes, yeah.
Although I put myself out there to be able to speak for him for the business too, the day-to-day is definitely his. But that's the general description. So right now, this is a business that Sean started about 20 years ago. Started as a home office in a home garage working on cars. As the technology changed, shifted into the home audio business. So audio visual, everything, TV, speakers, cameras, smart home integration, lighting, shade, all of those kinds of things. Fortunately, the business has grown. We are now at a point where we've outgrown the current location. This has been a years-long search to find a commercial space that would both be suitable as far as geographically convenient for all of the employees, as well as for the location to pop on and off the highway, to be able to get to the various locations.
People like us for that.
where the jobs are located, as well as being closer to our home. We live in Reading. So like you had described, as we described the other night, typical day would be for technicians to come to the site, load up their vehicles with whatever product it is that they are taking with them, and then be gone typically for the entire day. Whenever possible, it makes more sense to leave once. They wouldn't be necessarily going back and forth. Again, depending on where the jobs were located, it's possible that they could occasionally come during the day. There's 1 to 2 full-time office staff right now.
They come and they stay.
They would come and they would stay. So there's someone who does your typical office administrative type tasks. She's on the computer doing bookwork, things like that. Sean's located in the office a lot of the time, but then obviously he's the one who's out on the job. The rest of the staff, the rest of the team is any place, and any place is literally any place. They're on the vineyard, they're in Woburn, they're in Gloucester, they're in Montana, they are everywhere. So very few people will probably be in the building on any given time. As far as what the showroom, you know, and I use it sort of with quotes, what that may be is more of a demonstration area. So if you have a client who, you know, is trying to decide, you know, do I want to do an in-wall speaker? Do I want to do an invisible speaker? What is it going to look like? What is it going to sound like? Right now, that happens at my home. So as invasive as it is, it's not that often that it's actually happening. Over the last probably 4 or 5 years, I've maybe had 6 customers.
Your home in Reading?
My
or
home
the
in Reading.
Okay,
My home in
okay.
Reading. They walk into my home. I'm sort of outfitted with all the test products. And customers do. They come to our home. We have them in, and they can see, oh, this is how I operate my lighting, and this is my favorite button because I have a button at the back door that's goodbye, and I hit it once, and everything in the house shuts off. So I know that everything's gone. So showroom is not going to be something where you have people coming in every day. There's no retail element. No one can walk in, buy a TV, and walk out like Best Buy. It would be more of seeing how things happen in action. That's sort of the broader overview. What I also wanted to make sure that we were clear and upfront with the board is the reason we're coming to Woburn and found this location is because the business has grown. Some of the concerns that have come up out of some of the questions and sort of where we're going, which is what I think we're fleshing out tonight, is I don't want to be in a position where we're pigeonholing ourselves to where we are right now. So this is representative. These are the trucks that the company runs and owns today. The number of employees that we've quoted to you are the employees that we have today. We hope that will also continue to grow. So we want to make sure that, you know, if there's going to be any type of conditioning or anything as far as numbers of employees or ultimate number of cars, like, we need to know that, because obviously this is going to be a huge investment of time. This is going to be a large investment of money. We are under a purchase and sale agreement right now. It's contingent upon permitting for our intended use. So we want to be upfront and honest about what our use is. Our use is to come in right now, do what we're doing, and then hopefully have it grow even more. So that's a possibility. We're being upfront with that being a future possibility too.
And I appreciate you being upfront with that because it could be a problem. So what you're going to represent here as to what will be parked is what it would be conditioned on. And I know a couple of my fellow city councilors did take time to go down and see the site like I have done. I'm going to open it up now first to anybody on the committee and then anybody else who'd like to comment. He raised his hand first. Councilor DeMantis.
How you doing? So I took a ride down there today, and I specifically went down there for the reason of I wanted to see traffic. So I'm a lifelong resident of Woburn. I live on School Street. I see traffic 7 days a week. So I went down there specifically at 8:30. I figured that's probably when that area is going to be hopping the most. From what I saw, I went down there. I drove all the way down Dragon Court. I noticed that there were quite a few Eversource employees and workers working at the substation. There's approximately 14 vehicles parked on the street. There were people commuting into the industrial buildings down the back end of Dragon Court. And those are some pretty larger buildings. I don't know if everybody's familiar with the area, but they are larger buildings. There's Boyd down there, and there's also Comerick's, Parker Comerick's. They have approximately, 3 or 4 buildings down there, and I believe there's also a Commonwealth of Massachusetts has an office down there, state trooper, DA, something to that extent. In regards to the site, I walked the whole site. The parking is fairly limited. I would say there's also a loading dock. I know you did give us a print that shows approximately 7 parking spaces or so. So when you first walk into the site to the back right, my concern, one, would be that loading dock. I don't know what your delivery schedules are, but if you had some sort of a tractor trailer go in there to make a delivery, it's going to be real tight for if he has to take and navigate these 7 vehicles. I did notice on the backside of your property, or the property proposed, there is some room. There's really not enough for diagonal parking. You probably fit a few vehicles in the back. If you bump them, you probably could fit 4 vans. And in the front, again, same thing. You can't really angle the vehicles, and if you did, you'd have to pull them in and back almost completely back out to get to the exit onto Dragon Court. It is a smaller lot, but I will say this. Noticing all of the buildings down there, I literally took it upon myself to do an aerial satellite view of every single building, and I counted every single building's parking spaces. There's approximately 675 parking spaces striped in that industrial park. Boyd being the most with 270. And then there's a larger Parker, Comeric's building. That had approximately somewhere in the vicinity of 180. And then it dwindled down from there to 100 to 50 and so on and so forth. The one with the least amount of parking was 10 that I could count. So in your case, seeing the building in 5 vans with 3 employees, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say it's doable. Growth-wise, none of us know that. None of us would have that crystal ball. But I think your parking lot could probably handle, from what I could see, I would say comfortably 12 vehicles. You're looking at 7, I would say 12 is fairly comfortable, in making room for that loading dock that's in the back of the building, or I should say, right side, back, rear. I don't see any real problem with the building or what their application is. I also have an audio, video, installer directly behind my house. He's limited in parking as well, and I know he has approximately 3 or 4 cube trucks, 2 vans, and he's got 2 or 3 outside sales, and there's not a real lot of parking. It's right on New Boston Street. It's just to the right of Kayam Foods. They don't do a lot of back and forth. There's not a lot of in and out on, at their property either. So traffic-wise, I think you're pretty good. But I would be in support of this as of right now from what I saw, but I leave that up to the ward councilor.
Could you just expand just a little bit? I know you had a little bit of an experience.
So I had a little experience, yes. So when I was exiting Dragon Court, and I'm down the other end, down where Parker is, pretty much to the back end. When I was leaving, and I was going pretty slow because I'm looking around. I was doing about 15 miles an hour, maybe 18 tops. I saw a vehicle drive by me at a high rate of speed. It was a small little sports car, low profile, loud exhaust. Went by. By the time I got to Eversource, where all the vehicles were parked on the side of the road, this person, I look in my rearview mirror, is now on the tailgate of my pickup truck. Drive a full-size pickup, and I can barely see the roof of his car. And he took it upon himself to dart out to the left, past me at a high rate of speed with an oncoming car coming on Dragon Court. Again, I'm going past the substation with 14 vehicles, vans, pickup trucks for Eversource. I found that kind of interesting because I can understand how the residents down there see a lot of craziness with the traffic. But I also thought that people coming for work, they're at their place of business and they go to work and they, spend their 8 or 10 hours there and then they leave. There are some instances, I'm sure, that people maybe get lost, they're impatient, they're dropping, a relative off or a loved one at one of those facilities down there. But I don't foresee that as an issue with your company per se. So that's why I would say it was just the experience, and it was ironic that I was down there kind of doing a site visit, worrying about traffic and keeping traffic in mind, and that happened on that road, and it was, it did open my eyes to that. But I don't believe that would be any type of a cause to deny this application.
Councilor Campbell next.
Yeah. Will you be doing any large showroom events? I know that the residents were concerned about that as well, where you could potentially have a few hundred people coming to some sort of event.
I'll speak up to that.
So my intention for the space would be primarily by appointment only for customers. And when I mean customers coming, it would be like a husband and wife, maybe their kids coming. And the showroom or the show space that we're gonna have, the size of the spaces are gonna be much bigger than this room. It's gonna be more of a, my vision as it sees right now, because of the way the building's laid out, the walls, what we can do, how we can maneuver stuff, is you walk into the door and they have like conference table room set up. That's pretty much gonna be in my it's gonna be a conference table, TV, few speakers on the wall, maybe some motorized shades and some different types of light fixtures, just to show somebody and someplace to meet your clients. As far as having events and things like that, will I say we would never have an event? No. We will do like some sort of trainings every once in a while where all my staff will be there and maybe a couple of vendors would come in and do like a, lunch and learn or have pizza at nighttime and have people in. And even if I had like a customer appreciation time, I can't see that ever being more than 30 people.
Okay.
Like at the max. Like a lot of my clients are in the upper scale of the world, so they wouldn't be coming. But it's just more of a place to show somebody how we operate, the types of things that we can provide. I would need a building 3 times the size of that to show every product that we carry.
Okay.
It's mainly gonna be a storage facility and like an office space for me and my programmer, my secretaries, and a place for my guys to come unload and load. And the most traffic person that's gonna be giving the most traffic for that is gonna be me. I'm gonna be the one coming and going, and my secretary will probably be the second by going to the bank and coming back. But my guys generally, we operate out of Malden now. They come in at 7 o'clock in the morning. They load up. They may load up the night before. Some may take the van home the night before. They may leave their car there. They'll leave by 7:30 usually. They're on the road and they come back at anywhere between 4 and 6 o'clock. Whenever they're done with their job, and they come back and they clean up and they head out.
Okay, yeah, no, so that's wonderful. 30 people, I think, is not a huge event.
Yeah.
But, yeah, thank you.
That'd be just more just, grand opening and have all my vendors, all my distributors come in and see the space that, they're gonna be giving me product for and see what we're gonna be doing.
Okay, thank you. That's it. Darren.
Anybody else? Councilor Demers and then Councilor Toro.
Based on the 1981 plot plan that we received, did I count properly where I have 21 spots on site?
That's what we counted as well.
Okay, so there'd be 5 overnight. Everybody else will be gone.
Right, we're requesting for up to 5 overnight.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Councilor Toro.
Thank you. I think the main concern based on our last meeting was traffic and then overnight parking. And the traffic based on, I think, the planning board's determination was that this use was either the same or less intrusive than the prior use, if I read that correctly. And with the 21 spots, with 5 overnight spots, seems like it gives you plenty of room for growth if you wanted to grow. Just also be aware that if you're applying for 5 overnight spots now, if you wanted to, you'd have to come back and request that. Being a small business owner as well, I love to have the small businesses is growing out of their space and wanting to come to Woburn and set up shop here. So I support the petition. I think I've also, I just rebuilt my house. I'm a contractor. I rebuilt my house and I did lighting control in my house and I went to it seems like a similar type of setup that you guys have in Boston. They had a showroom and set up with motorized shades, different lighting controls, things like that. So I have an idea of what I'm assuming the showroom would look like. And it was a smaller showroom, there was by appointment only, you don't just show up there. So I have an idea of what you're looking to do, I think. I think supporting our local small business is a great thing. So you have my support. Thank you.
Just a follow-up.
Councilor Demers.
What, can you just give us an idea of how often the facility will be receiving shipments of your hardware?
So they will be getting shipments every day. I get shipments every day right My FedEx and UPS guy in Malden, they actually have a code to my building and they drop everything off inside. If no one's there, but, we would be getting FedEx and UPS daily, as everybody else does. Occasionally, a tractor trailer, a smaller size tractor trailer, not a big one, you know, they got like the half tractor trailers, delivering a few TVs. And that's probably once or twice a month. We don't do that many TV sales in that, the big size that we need the tractor trailer. Most of it comes UPS and FedEx.
Great, thank you.
President Dillon.
Thank you. I as well drove down there today, checked out what's happening, the whole area. Familiar with that because way back when I first graduated from high school, I was a tin knocker. And I did all the sheet metal and maintained the equipment at Comerix way back then. So it's always been, from what I've seen, experience, a commercial route that had residential as you went there. Way back then, they didn't have the development that recently went in, Mr. Murray put in not too long ago.
700.
Yes, thank you. So, the public road, as far as UPS, Prime being delivered, I dare say my wife and my daughter have probably as many deliveries from those two than many businesses. So again, the building certainly looks like it's a good fit. I certainly could see more intrusive uses out of that building. So I understand some of the residents have concerns, but again, it is a public road. And, you know, it's commercial. It's been commercial. I'm 65 and I was working there when I was 20, so it's been like that for years. So, thank you.
Anybody else? So just a couple of things. The site plan was from 1981. And I did ask the building commissioner if we needed a revised site plan. And what he said to me is he didn't feel that that was necessary because there was no major changes going on to the building. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I don't see any, the only changes I could honestly see.
Is that accurate from what he understood?
Yes, yeah, the only thing I could see is if you drove the property, you saw the back loading dock to the door, and there's no stairway there.
Yes.
The only thing I could see is putting a stairway in for the door to be accessible.
But no major structural changes, and
no.
I asked that question because if there are, then I would say to this committee, and so would Inspector Quinn, you need a revised site plan.
Right.
So based on that information, just so
Right.
everyone knows, Commissioner Quinn was
The
satisfied.
envelope is staying
With that.
exactly the same.
Okay. The 24 parking spaces, as indicated by the site plan. You heard Councilor DeMambro say, what did you think you,
I think 12's comfortable, if, providing you leave that loading dock open.
but in terms of, because when we get to that point, one of the conditions will be every single one of the parking spaces, 24, will be striped and marked, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, so that they're identified on the lot. And they can't be, all compact. And of course, you have to have, a handicap parking spot. The building commissioner will be in charge of making sure that happens. But that would certainly be one of the conditions, that it be striped and numbered, and then maintained yearly or every 2 years, and that would be based on the building commissioner's inspection of the lot and the lines. So that's one thing. And then in terms of the trucks and the comings and goings, President Dillon took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, I have 3 young girls, my daughter's still living with me, and Amazon has to be at our house probably 4 times a day, and there's 60 houses on our street. They could literally just take one big trailer, but that would be discouraged because it's not allowed on residential street, and just stay there and deliver packages all day. So as you pointed out, those are things that are already happening in the neighborhood. I would like to make sure we condition it that we're not having late night deliveries. As you see, there are neighbors literally right across, even though this is an industrial area, there are neighbors who live right there.
Where I operate right now, I have a neighbor in my backyard, literally in my backyard. I have never had in 20 years, one complaint from any of my neighbors or my town or anybody. We don't
And
get late deliveries, but
I found no complaints where you're operating now. So you asked me in the email, why are you asking a question about where you are now? That's why, because I always call when someone's moving here to see if there's any complaints down at town hall or city hall regarding your business, and zero. So that's great.
the latest, like I said, the guys got stuck on a job, or got stuck in traffic coming home.
You're having,
And they would come up like 7, 8 o'clock, they would come and unload, or they would actually, if I wouldn't unload, they would drop their van off, get their car and go home and unload in the morning. So there's no late deliveries.
so again, the striping, now the vans, if this is what you're representing to the council that you're going to have.
Yes.
This is what I would expect that you're going to have.
Like,
And it's important, sir, Sean,
Yeah.
may I call you Sean? It's very important that they're marked, and the reason it's important is because if there's issues, and people can see your name.
well, you can see every one of my vehicles, except the 2 vehicles in my whole company, that some other people drive, that it's their personal cars, that are not marked. So all my vans, and I have one pickup truck for snow removal and snow plowing and stuff like that, they're all lettered. And my vans are maintained, I can't get new vans every 3 years. I don't like them being dirty, I don't like them being, I have a cleaning company that comes in and cleans my vans every other week. So I take high pride in my company.
And another condition is we would have some language about big showroom events, that those wouldn't be allowed. What you described seems perfectly fine, but, advertising to 30 or 50 people. And you also mentioned training, you could have 30 people. Remember, you only have 24 spaces.
Right.
So I support the petition with the understanding that the neighbors on this street have gone through a lot back in the 80s and early 70s when I was in high school and some were in, junior high at that time. A lot of zoning changes happened. We would not zone streets like that today, right? You wouldn't have an industrial park at the end of a street where there's neighbors to drive by. But having said that, Mr. Murray built a beautiful cul-de-sac, Garvey Road, and he had zero problem selling the houses at $700,000 several years ago. It has been brought to my attention, there's a lot more children in the neighborhood. So you need to be mindful of that. Honestly, I'm not concerned about you. I'm concerned about a lot of the big trucks that are coming and going now, the 18-wheelers that there's nothing we can do about that today. But I'm grateful to the police department for the help that we do get to try to slow things down. So if the council is willing, I do have a list of conditions which I would like to draft more carefully and bring to the council on October 1st, the draft of conditions. So if I could have a motion, which I will work with the petitioner and the petitioner's attorney, and Councilor DeMambro has agreed to take a peek at those with me. If I could have a motion to send it back for action. But again, I think that this would be a good fit for the area, providing everything we've heard tonight is accurate. And would you be willing to go over those conditions before October 1st? And keep in mind, whatever conditions we come up with, the city council, when they see those on October 1st, absolutely can amend them and add to them should they choose. So. Do I have
Yeah, I just
Councilor
have a
Toro?
yeah.
Yes.
While those conditions are being worked on, I just have 2 things that I'd like to be considered. One, just some sort of definition or terminology in regards to what's considered a big showroom event, right? That's
Yep.
number one. Number 2, to be very blunt and honest, I'm not a huge I'm not a huge proponent on conditioning or sticking them with having to utilize these vehicles, you know what I mean? So again, being an owner of my business, I have 12 pickup trucks or mix of trucks, box trucks, vans. I can trade 3 of those in, 3 pickup trucks, and decide to go with 3 box trucks, right? They're all similar size vehicles. So I think forcing them to keep these type of vehicles, I think, I don't like that and I wouldn't support that. I think if we want to keep them to similar types of vehicles, that's fine. But I don't think it's fair to condition them to having to keep these vehicles, because if business changes, shifts a little bit, and they need 2 more of these instead of these vans, or a Sprinter van, again, they're all similar size, similar weight class, similar style. I just think we need to keep that into consideration as well.
And I'm perfectly fine saying similar weight class, similar style, but they absolutely must be marked. And we will, list how many that you can have.
Perfect. Thank you.
And understand, at some point, if that changes, when we get to the council, when we're doing our findings, I would be thinking much differently about this proposal if we were talking big tractor trailers.
At the most, I would see, to be honest with you, we always be operating vans or a pickup truck, the most I would see would be like one, even a van, but a box truck, so I could fit more stuff in it. That would be the biggest that I could think, ever experience.
And not a whole fleet of them, or?
No.
Yeah.
The vans are what we operate.
Because I'm just being honest, and I think there are some people here on the council that if we were talking about that sort of thing, it might give other people pause. So if I could have a motion from
I have a
somebody
motion.
on the committee.
Make a motion
That
to
this petition goes back for action for the SKA properties.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So I'll communicate with you through Gordon. He'll be copied on everything.
Okay.
And we'll go from there. And I believe this is on for October 1st, President Dillon, is that correct?
The date, actually.
Yeah, okay.
That's the date I'll be there.
Okay.
All right,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
Say yes.
Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Make the motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you for that.
Well, I wish no life away. You don't either.
Did I step on you,
Which one is it?
Councilor Demers?
I was gonna return to the
I'm
regular order of
sorry.
business, but that's quite all right.
Okay.
Whenever you're ready for it.
All over here.
Thank you, Tom.
Dinner. You know, I like to take
All right.
appetizer.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Jeff Dillon, President of City Council, Ward 3 City Councilor, and I'm going to call the Committee on Liaison to order. First, we have 3 items. First one is reading of the meeting minutes of August 26, 2024.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we dispense with the reading, please.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes. The second item we have is the order authorizing the mayor to enter into a friendly taking of 6 common. Good evening, Mayor Concanon.
President.
Mark Salvati, Attorney
Good evening.
Salvati.
All, good to see you all again.
If you'd like, if the committee wishes, we can maybe have Mayor Concanon give us a briefing of what he has in front of us here.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. So what we have, the committee liaison is the order authorizing the mayor to enter into a friendly taking, a legal term, of 6 Common Street, the building next door here. As you know, you also have a companion piece on the Committee of Finance coming up later on tonight, which would be the order transferring a certain amount of money to buy the building and rehab it, if you're so inclined. So just by way of background, and I'll let the city solicitor get into the legal details of the process that is the subject of this item. Again, we're talking about, right now in front of you is an order that would authorize me to begin the process of what's known as a friendly take. So, shortly after I was elected, I was approached by the owners of the building next door asking about the city's interest in purchasing the building. It was listed as available for lease or for sale. Had some very preliminary discussions with the owners of the building. Made sure that they understood that this was a decision that would be made by city council, not the mayor, but I would begin the discussions with the owners about the possibility of. So just to reiterate, I made it clear to them that any discussions, negotiations would need the full blessing of the council or they meant nothing. So we continued discussions. As you recall, we came down here and basically asked for the blessing to begin the process and start talking with the owners. Thankfully, you granted that, and we spent the spring and the summer going back and forth many times with the owners of the building. One of the first things we did was explore the avenues to obtain the building. City solicitor researched the legality of how municipalities can buy buildings. He'll get into this more in greater detail, but that's what led us to the friendly taking avenue. We also made several visits to the building to try to determine its value and its usefulness. Building commissioner, city solicitor, auditor, city engineer. We had a team of people checking out the building a couple of different times. And then we felt it was appropriate, as you'd expect, to get an appraisal. So we obtained an appraisal for a dollar amount, 1.18 million. Also asked if the seller would share their appraisal with us, and they did, and their appraisal was 1.5. So there was a delta. So we went back and forth with them several more times. Mark spoke several times with the owner's lawyer about it. We got to a point in probably, midsummer. We had one last meeting with them, and we went from our 1.18, they were at 1.5, they came down to 1.377. We still felt that was a little bit too high. Continued to talk. So in the meantime, we also got an estimate from a local contractor to tell us what we might need to do to that building to ensure ADA compliant and updated restroom facilities to accommodate not only those who might work in there, but those who might visit from the public, as it would be a public building. So we got that estimate. That was approximately $160,000 to do those two changes. And then at the same time, all these things were happening at the same time, we also started talking internally with many of the department heads to try to gauge the level of need for the building, the need for space, storage, and office. And we also started to discuss possible uses and what the setup might look like, what departments might go over there if we were to buy the building. So these things were all happening right around the same time. We have a rough idea of which departments might best fit, over there. I can tell you at the initial stages, we're talking perhaps building, conservation, engineering. We've talked with those departments, they're amenable, but no decisions and no plans would be made until we got the okay to buy it. And I think it would be best at that point to have something like a building use subcommittee where we gather the folks here and come up with the best possible use for the building. So those things are all happening, but none of it would mean anything until we could reach an agreement with the owners. And again, the last in-person conversation we had, they came down to 1.377. As you recall, our appraisal was 1.18. We felt that appraisal was fair and reasonable, or perhaps there was additional value in the fact that it's the building next door, the proximity has some particular value to this, to City Hall, above and beyond what value might be to just some generic insurance company or office use. Mark continued to press the issue with the owners. We held firm at a number of 1.25, we felt was just the highest we could reasonably come to this council asking for. Because we knew the 160 in improvements and perhaps whether it's counter space being adjusted over there, some sound baffling, we knew that the other costs that would come up as part of the building use subcommittee, that would bring that number up. So 1.18 plus 160 plus about $70,000 brought us to the 1.5 that's in front of you. That's the time frame. Mark went back to them and said, that's it, 1.25 for the building plus what we need to make it, completely useful. The city would be all in at 1.5, so our final offer to the owners was 1.25. And I credit Mark for his tenacious negotiating skills, and he got them to agree to 1.25. Again, everything's explained to them that number means nothing until this council approves the overall dollar amount. So we have a tentative agreement with them to buy the building for 1.25. We're in front of you tonight asking for the 1.5 total to accommodate those upgrades. And again, these are two matters we're talking about, the one in front of you now and then the one in finance. Since we're talking about the particulars of a friendly taking, I would then ask the city solicitor to weigh in now and explain what that all means.
Sure. So I feel like I'm back in private practice because my client told me he was going to talk briefly. So anyway, friendly taking is simply what it sounds like. It's for anything for public purpose. It has to be a public purpose, which is uncontested and the amount of compensation is agreed to, right? So in an unfriendly taking, like we did on Montville Ave or wherever else we had done it, it's contested and anybody can sue you on it and fight you on it. In a friendly taking, they relinquish all rights. They can't come back at you for any reason. If you agreed on a friendly taking with an agreed upon amount, that's it, you own it. So it's a clear title. It's like a purchase. You could not purchase here because there's a state statute which says a municipality can't buy real estate for more than 25% of the assessed value. So the assessed value was fairly low. And as we all know, assessed values, especially on commercial property, is sometimes not indicative of market value. So that being said, we took this avenue. It's actually a simpler process than a closing when you do a friendly taking. It's just a filing and you come to own it and you pay the money. So are there any questions on that particular aspect of it? All right. With that, I did have department heads. I had sent the appraisal and the two appraisals, and was that all accepted and made part of the record? Do you need to make a vote on that?
I think we do. I'm gonna make a motion to accept both communications from Attorney Salvati, which I think we got on Friday.
Friday by email.
Friday by email.
Second.
Friday being the 19th, no, 20th, right?
20th.
Yeah, Friday the 20th.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
There's also a letter, Mark, there's also a letter from the city clerk that just came in this afternoon, and she would like that entered in the record too.
Well,
Sam?
that's in here.
Is that in there too? Okay.
Yeah. I think if you accept this package, you.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to accept the package that
Second.
Attorney Salvati is about to.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
So you don't have to go through and read them all. I'll try to give you a little synopsis of what's stated, but these are letters from the city auditor, city clerk, Conservation Commission, the grant writer, Human Resources, Inspectional Services, Planning Board, Purchasing, and the Treasurer Collector. So what we hope the council will find is that there's truly a need here for this building. We have really outgrown this building. We provided the letters. The only ones that didn't give us a letter were the assessor's office, who was down 2 employees already, and the rec department, who if they didn't have the space at Spence Farm, would be putting the letter in my office, which is, has plenty of space, but I'm actually storing files now for conservation and historical files in the law office. So as you can see, there are some things in there we just cannot provide with the space we have, and one of which, as stated by Shauna, Human Resources Director, is a private nursing area needed, which is a requirement by law. We don't have a space for anyone to nurse, and that is a requirement that we can't fulfill at this point. We would also, should have a break room. I mean, people that don't live in Woburn certainly should be able to have a nice place to go and eat, and we don't really have sufficient eating space. And that's a recurring theme through these letters that, you know, this room, the city engineering, it's booked. I mean, Shauna and I have been doing labor negotiations, and we've had to either cancel or go to the library, or we just don't have ample space for all these committees that are meeting. Storage is another major issue. The city clerk, building department, treasurer, and my office all are under requirement to keep paper records. You wouldn't think that was a thing, but it is, and some need to be kept perpetuity. So with the loss of the Plimpton School and soon the Wyman School, we need more storage here. So not only will 6 Common provide additional storage in the basement, it'll free up some storage here, and we can have the proper storage that certainly many of these departments need, especially the city clerk. Bulging. We are cramped. The Conservation Commission works under a staircase.
Oh, that's terrible.
With the new head clerk basically in a closet, under the staircase. Planning board director, in an office where he can't really have visitors. He's fine. The grant writer is a 4x8 alley behind file cabinets in an open space where others are on the phone. And for most every office that someone goes into, all they see are files, file cabinets, and boxes, where it should be a nice, clean public building. This building has about 26,000 square feet, of which about 5,000 of it are taken up by the chambers, the rotunda, and the meeting spaces. So that's about 21,000. So a quick comparison, Billerica has about 43,000 residents. They have about 100,000 square feet of town hall space. Basically, they took over the high school there.
Did you say Bill Rucker?
Billerica. Burlington has about 20,000 square feet of space in the 2 buildings. They seem like it's more, but it's really about that amount, which is similar to us. But that does not include a law department, a rec department, board of health, a retirement office, purchasing, or IT, which we all have here, in addition to Burlington. The May service, 26,000 people. We have 41. Lexington has about 20,000 square feet for 35,000 residents, and they told me they're in dire need of space as well. Reading has about 20,000 with about 26,000 residents. Winchester has about 30,000 square feet, and they serve about 23,000. Stone and Earth about 20,000 square feet, and they service about 23,000. So we discussed the friendly taking. The funding, as stated, will come from the stabilization fund. We really want to emphasize this, that there's no tax, no relation to the taxes going up for this purpose. Okay, this is money we have. This is money if spent, will not affect our bond rating. We're not asking it to be bond or borrow to do it. We have the cash to do it. The mayor talked about the improvements. I went through it myself, and I have a little bit of experience in building. It's got a failing boiler. I think it's probably 5 years old, and a new 400 amp electrical service. It doesn't cost about $6,500 for utilities over there per year. So that would be about the only thing that came into this budget. Just a quick thing on what I call the intangibles. So control. We know that commercial real estate is on a downturn, but it's rare for a property like this to decrease in value. But whether we keep it or not, we would have control over our neighbor, okay? Especially when you think about the work you might do out there for the downtown improvement. You won't get an objection from us by owning that building. We don't know who might be in there if we don't buy it. Even if we sell it later, we can sell it to a person or a company that we know would be good for the city. So that's one big part of this, is that we get control of a building that's, well, you could throw a rock, I mean, you could reach out and touch it. The other big thing we have for intangibles is morale. I mean, it's tight quarters sometimes, and that makes for unhappy employees down here when you're in a tight space. So cleaning out the spaces and providing a better work environment for what we feel is an outstanding workforce here, I think would be a great boost to morale and help in employee retention, really. There was a discussion, Billy, about working remotely. We talked about that quite a bit this week. We are a public service company, okay? It'd be very difficult to work remotely to save office space. Most offices work with the tax public on a very daily basis. Shauna gets 50 people a week and the building department gets 50 people a week. So it's not like you could just go remote. We think there'd be a large disconnect with the public if that occurred. So that's why we really want to keep us out front with a nice public face on it. So with that, I guess the mayor and I.
May I?
Yes, Council Rule.
Attorney Salvati, I don't think this is in our package. This
This.
here that you were,
No, that's my note.
yes, could we?
You want it?
I'd like to make a motion, we accept that as part of, well, there was a lot of pieces on there that
Sure.
you referenced.
Yeah.
I think that is important.
I can-
Make a reference that we
I can
accept
submit
that, thank you.
There's a
Anybody?
motion
You want
and a
to make a
second.
copy for?
I don't have any copies, but I can make them when you.
I made a motion, I don't know if anybody made a second. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That pass, you're welcome.
So thank you, Mark. That was a
That was good.
great summary. So again, we've got one matter in liaison and then the subsequent matter in
But you want to keep it.
I'll give it to
finance.
Gordon and he'll give it back to you.
I don't need that.
So what's in front of you is really the taking itself. Does this council liaison, comprise of the whole council, does it agree that this is an opportunity that we should seize upon? As Mark said, you know, there's uniqueness here, the building is right next door. I personally feel like the city may have missed an opportunity to purchase the Santander Bank building when it was available. I think we're gonna be regretting that for years to come. I don't wanna be part of the team that fails to buy this building and we regret that for years to come. I absolutely believe we need the space. I'm pleased that department heads shared their thoughts. As I said to many of you, if you don't believe me when I say we need the space, please go talk to each of the department heads and ask them directly. I know many of you did that, and I know what they told you, and they also chose to put it in writing, which is great. There was a clear need for space, office space, meeting space, storage space. They aren't making any more buildings around us, there's one right here. I think we must obtain this building. Second question is, at what price? Because like every one of you, I am concerned about how much money we spend. Absolutely concerned. It's what keeps me up at night. But we're at the point now where we need to do some things. We simply need to do some things. And one of them is accommodate the needs of this city government. And this building is not doing it. So then the question becomes, is 1.25 for sale price for that building a good price? We have our appraisal, we have their appraisal. If you split the distance, you'd come in at 1.377. We're getting it cheaper than that. Our appraisal is 1.18, so it's costing a little bit more than that. Again, the appraisal is looking at the brick and mortar, the building, the square footage. To me, there is some value in having the building next door. Is that $70,000 more? I think so. I can live with that. But this body has to live with that as well. We think we've done a reasonable amount of work determining the ADA and the restroom facility upgrades. And we think we could make it work with the remainder for the accommodations within counter space, cubbies, and potential sound bathroom. So we're here tonight to tell you that this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to buy this building. We believe we've done our due diligence to demonstrate to you that it's a fair offer that's on the table. And we're asking this committee to support the friendly taking of 6 Common Street.
Thank you. Councilor Toro.
Thank you. I think the two matters or the two questions that we have to look at is, do we need it, and is the price fair? And I think these letters from all our department heads and the conversations I've had with many of them answer that first question. We certainly need it, between the need to hire more positions, whenever that is, and the fact that we can't because we don't have room in some of these departments' offices. The need for more storage space. Talking to one of the department heads, the cost associated with moving files from one location to the next when necessary, or the need to potentially store these in off-site third parties cost us money. We no longer would have to pay for that because we would have internal storage space, right? And three, just, I think in our HR director's letter, the need to have a space designated for breastfeeding moms, right? Parents that we don't have right now, and we're not in compliance. I think the need is well justified. In terms of the price, I think the main question, and our city solicitor answered that, is would it have an impact on our residents in terms of a tax increase? And the answer to that question was no, because we're using essentially rainy day funds to purchase that property. With it being $70,000, I think I had a conversation with you at one point, Mayor Concanon, that, things like proximity to City Hall, the need for us, and our city solicitor made a great point about having control of that property when the imminent project of our downtown renovation is coming up, would be fantastic. And it's an appreciable asset. At the end of the day, any real estate, commercial, residential, is going to appreciate in value. So if we're gonna spend money that doesn't have an impact on our taxpayers, that in 5 years and 10 years or whenever, if we wanna try to sell that product, that piece of parcel off, it's gonna be worth more than what it is now. That's just the fact of the matter. I think we can all agree on that. I'm in support of it. I think we discussed it at one point with our city auditor. I think you, Charlie, you have a position open that you can't fill or decided not to fill because there's no room in your office.
We're
for that
challenged by
position.
the existing structure of the building that we try to relocate.
Yeah, and morale. Our city attorney mentioned, it just, in our chief procurement officer's letter, he mentioned about all the boxes stacked behind him, and it would declutter his office, and you're just stuck with all this. I think, as long, the big thing for me is, do we need it, and does it have an impact on the taxpayers? We definitely need it. There's no impact on the taxpayers. It's a win-win for the city. I support it 100%.
Thank you. Councilor Viola.
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to echo some of the sentiments of Councilor at-large Toro. Do we need it? Do we want it? It's pretty evident from the information that we got from our department heads that it is needed. Do we want it? Yeah, we want it because it's right next door. It's cheaper than, as Rob said, putting files off-site. It's right there. It's accessible. And if we did get it and say down the road we didn't want it, the city could flip it and make their money back and then some. I just have a couple questions, probably Charlie, to ask you. If the city council were to approve this, how much money would be left in the rainy day funds?
We're taking this from the general stabilization account, which is supposed to be for capital type of purchases like this. We roughly have a little over $15 million in there right now, so we'd be probably just around
So we'd be
14
good,
million,
okay.
which is still, the point I'm trying to get to, but still well above the level that our reporting agencies want, so we can't maintain
Right.
AAA.
Yes, okay. Mr. Mayor, has anybody looked at the roof to see what condition it's in and when it was, somebody put one on there?
The appraisal did, I'm not sure how old that is. We'll probably find that.
'Cause I know building that size, that roof would be a good amount of money.
Short answer is yes, they did, and it was a favorable.
Yeah, my recollection was 12 years old, but I'd have to look. If you want to ask another question, maybe I can find it.
That's good.
That's all I would have for now.
All right. 2006.
2006.
You good, Councilor Viola?
I'm good, thank you.
All right, Councilor Pavula.
Just real quick, I like the storage idea, but I don't want that to become another, just a storage house. We can do that cheaper. I really think this is a great opportunity for access to the citizens, the community, to have a place to go when you need to see city departments instead of traipsing up and down a roundabout. I love the idea of taking the building, but I really love that first floor to become a place that people can solve problems for the
Yeah,
community.
it definitely would. The plan for storage would be, there's a full dry basement over there that can certainly accommodate most of our storage needs. Also, by moving people around, we free up some actual storage space here in this building. So yeah, the first floor would be office, open to the public, not just boxes.
And then the whole morale issue of people having space and the ability to be proud of an area instead of every time I walk in and out of the building, see Patrice tucked under the stairwell there. I just feel bad for her. But I think this is an awesome opportunity. And if we don't do it, in 5 years, we'll be saying, why didn't we? And I think it's great. And thank you for taking the opportunity.
Councilor Demands.
So I think it's important to kind of look backwards a little bit when we talk about this and, you know, the history of Woburn City Hall. When, what was the basement? There was a holding cell in the basement. I mean, it was our police department.
That's where it started.
And we've come a long way.
That's where I started.
We've come a long way from now because what was previously break rooms are now office space. But I think also previous decisions made by this council and previous councils need to be taken into consideration as well. We've had the either raised or auctioned. We've had the collapsed school, the Plimpton, the Herald is becoming a park. We've got the North Woburn Fire Station that was auctioned, Central Square that's headed for auction, and still a disposition on the Wyman School. So we've given away a lot of space, or sold a lot of space off, that could have been used in this manner. But I do agree with the mayor that having a facility next to us here in City Hall will add to the cohesiveness of City Hall and access to the public. I also want to caution too that, you know, everybody thinks that we can send off every single record over to like a vendor like Iron Mountain. There are state and federal laws that prohibit us from doing that in terms of certain vital records that need to remain on site with the office that is the keeper of that record. And also looking at it legally. I mean, we're opening ourselves up to federal labor law violations, and not only that, but, you know, break space. I mean, that's a collective bargaining issue. We could be in violation of our collective bargaining agreements. And also, you'd be surprised at how vague some legal and labor language is with regards to, I can't remember the exact phraseology when negotiating teachers' contracts, but it basically had to do with work environment. And if you don't have decent amount of square footage for a working space, or if you're basically working in a bullpen setting, how quickly that could become a legal problem and a liability for the city. So I think, you know, moving forward, I think looking at it more of a holistic, and again, it's not just about storage. It's great that we would have the added storage space, but you know, having offices for agencies that do so much work that are larger than 350 square feet of operating space, I think it's great. And I think, you know, there's another thing to consider too with taxpayers is, you know, sometimes these settings are too intimate. So folks won't come in and talk about something due to the fact that the office space is so small that maybe something that means a lot to them that they want to talk to a department head or somebody on staff. They may not want to say that in a general setting where there's 6 employees all within 15 feet of each other. So I think that these are all considerations that I thought a lot about this over the weekend. And I think especially with it not, you know, it's this, we're not financing this. This is not like a bond issue. We're not putting this on the next tax bill. I think moving forward with this out of our stabilization fund as a capital expense is a smart move, especially when, you know, we've either auctioned off or raised structures that, I mean, it's basically been musical chairs for some of our records. They've gone from the Plimpton, some over to the Herald, some over to the Wyman. And it's kind of, they're kind of like running away from impending either demolition or auction. So I think this is a wise move, much added space, and I think if you look at it, the whole picture, I think it's worth the amount that is being requested. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Bowe.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the presentation and all the documentation. And I'm so, if you had come to us and asked us to spend 1.5 million on some operational expense, I'm sure nobody here would have the conversation we're having. We're swapping an asset for an asset that, as you pointed out, Attorney Salvati, is likely going to grow in value. The thing that I have continued to struggle with, not so much the storage stuff. I mean, Councilor Demers mentioned Iron Mountain. I mean, we're not storing anything in Iron Mountain. We're storing it in old buildings that don't have any climate control. And I'm not sure we really need those things. But at the end of the day, maybe when we finish with this, we should reach out to the powers that be at the State House who really know those laws and find out what we can and cannot do. The document police aren't coming after us today. But for me, the biggest question always was, is it gonna cost us more money in taxes? Answer is no. We're swapping an asset for an asset. And how does it benefit the taxpayers? Because this is their money. Is this a good investment for them? Right now, the money is in the bank accumulating all kinds of interest. Is this a better investment for them? And that's what I was struggling with. We want our employees to be comfortable? Absolutely. But I was having trouble getting to how this benefits the residents. But as I sat here tonight and then spent some time talking with constituents, this absolutely will benefit our constituency because they won't be walking into offices where they're not very welcoming. Gosh, nobody can fit in Teresa's office. That's no joke. For people at home that are watching, if you want to meet with the conservation director, if there's more than one of you, you have to stand in the hallway. And that's an extreme example, but it's an example. And that's one area that absolutely needs to be rectified. I would like to see some, and I think you provided it, Attorney Salvati, some more detail on the breakdown of the 160 for the for what we're going to do.
Yeah.
And I know that it was probably somewhere in that 54 pages and 58 pages, but I felt like it was on the West Wing and getting like the legal dump.
No, it's
Oh my God.
It's in
Can
there.
you
It
help us?
breaks it down between restrooms and ADA.
Can you just maybe pull out those documents and shoot those out to those of us that don't have legal aids? And then I wanted to ask about the roof. So the roof is how many years old? 16?
16 years.
16 years old. So I don't know anything. I know normally in a house, you replace a roof, every 20 years or so? Are we gonna have to spend money to replace that roof soon? And if so, perhaps we need to understand how much that is, because if that changes the number, maybe now's
Yeah,
the
the
time.
appraisal opinion of the roof is in there. It's favorable. I don't believe we're gonna need a new roof soon, but you tell me what you mean by soon. Someday, this
Absolutely,
body is going to be replacing that roof if we buy
right,
that.
but are we gonna be replacing it in 2 years? Or
It
3
doesn't
years?
appear that way based on the appraisal.
Okay, okay,
But that's in there.
okay, if you could hold that out too.
And then, you want me to answer the question about the repairs?
Yes, please.
So you have in your package a 4-page estimate from Clarence Slimer, broken down pretty well, I think, for the handicap ramps, which came in at about $13,350, to make the doors handicap, $4,400. Then he does a demo for 36, and then the reframing for the, basically for just the bathroom. So this quote is to do the 2 ramps. His suggestion and the building commissioner's suggestion is both doors would have ramps. This side door and the front.
Okay.
And so they would need new doors, bigger doors with a push button. And then the rest of the quote is for the bathrooms, only, plumbing and costs for plumbing, which was about $38,000.
And does that include attorney making the office space, building out the office space, or I have
No.
never been in the building, so I don't know.
No, so it's all cubicles.
Okay,
And there may be, the mayor will still have to make that decision about what and how, and what goes over there and how. I would envision maybe 4 corner offices perhaps with outlying cubicles for their staff, but I don't know. It would be this corner that would have the 2 accessible bathrooms right here, and then the rest would either be wide open or cubicles. And there's also a mezzanine that has about 1,200 square feet of office space. Can't be open to the public, because if it doesn't have a bathroom on that floor, it can't be open. And but that could be offices for people that don't really interact, or you can interact down below. Then the basement is in very good shape. So it could be, you could have offices down there as well, but the idea would be for almost all that to be storage.
and the mention that there's been talk about moving building, conservation, and engineering, that actually seems like a nice little group that should belong together. I would, you could just go from door to door. I do like the idea that it's across the street, it's kind of part of our city hall campus, if you will. So my last question is about the Wyman and where we are in the disposition of that. And then, it's not really my last question, it's my second to last. Where are we with, and I'm not asking any particulars, I'm asking, have we settled the union contracts yet?
All 7 of them? Not yet. no.
Okay.
We're actively pursuing.
We're just about 7 away.
But we're about 2.5 months into the process, which is not
Okay.
hurting by any stretch.
Nope, I wasn't suggesting a paper chart, I was just wondering where we were.
Yeah. Your other question.
The Wyman.
The Wyman.
Yeah.
So, as you know, midsummer or so, maybe it was June, I forget, the school committee had their vote. Required by law, they needed to vote to determine they no longer needed that building for educational purposes. They had that vote, they sent that communication to this council, you accepted it. At this point, the ball is in my court to send you down a request for disposition, which is kind of like we just did with
The fire
Station
station, right, okay.
So I can send that down next month, and then the process begins. This council then determines what type of guidance or direction you'd like to give me in terms of that disposition. I expect at that point you'll have public meetings and hearings and receive input from others on the best disposition for that building, and I will follow the guidance and direction from this council.
And I personally, I can't speak for the council, but I'd like to see that happen rather than later. One thing about old buildings, the older they get, the worse they get. And we all know that building's in tough shape already, so.
Yeah, you can expect that shortly.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, but as far as I'm concerned, and I have to tell you, I've individually spoken to a couple of counselors who will tell me, oh, on Friday she was a dead no, and on Saturday she was a maybe, and we don't. I've taken a lot of time to
You're a
think.
yes tonight.
Yes, I am. You don't need me, but that's not, I say that because I gave it a lot of consideration, and this really is the right decision for the city. We're trading one asset for another asset. The public indeed will benefit from this, and I will support it 100%.
Councilor DeMambro.
Very much left. Mayor Buchanan, I want you to know I struggled with this in the beginning. When this first got pitched, and thanks to my colleague, President Dillon, we debated about this, you and I.
Yes, we did.
Extensively. And even through the debate, and he's a great debater, I wanted to take and just find things out for myself. It helped coming to City Hall almost daily, going to all the different department heads, whether it planning, engineering, conservation, city clerk's office. I spent a lot of time in those offices, and I also got to talking with those folks. The city clerk this past Friday gave me a tour of all of the areas of her storage in old vaults. They're right to the ceiling. We have records from the 1800s. This back room, more storage. As a matter of fact, one of the clerks employees was back there having their lunch. I was almost a little embarrassed coming in and, ruining their lunch because we were in there talking, and I was a little embarrassed by that for her. That got to show me just how tight we really are. We're tight even in this conference room as we speak. I thought of the Wyman School, but being on the Building and Planning Committee for the school buildings, I took a tour of that school. And I want everybody to understand, that's at this table as well as the public, the renovations for that school would amount into the tens of millions of dollars, because the building is pretty much on its last year. It structurally and everything else, and to bring it up with today's codes and standards, if people think out there that we have a property and we have a building, why don't we just use that? Why don't they just move offices over there? Well, to bring that building up, it probably cost tens of millions of dollars to bring it up to where we need it to be. The city clerk also, she brought it to my attention that yes, the records, like Attorney Salvati has said, you have to keep those in perpetuity. I right away said, like I thought about a month and a half ago, bring a company in, put it on thumb drives. Why do we have to save it? And she explicitly said, you must keep the hard paper copies. And you have to keep them forever. And once she started showing me the record books and the vault from the 1800s and so on and so forth, I was like, she's right. I mean, here they are. And they are important records. I've talked to the building commissioner. He has plans all over the city. He's just run out of storage. He keeps all the plans for all the different projects, residential, commercial, industrial. He's out of room. I put all these little pieces together, as well as just the fact the building is literally 25 feet from where we're sitting. You can't get more convenient than that. If we were to even buy the Woburn 5-cent savings bank across the street, we would have to constantly have people hustling and bustling through the common. It just doesn't make sense, and it's not efficient whatsoever. I have come to the realization, and within the last few weeks, being all of these different aspects that I've drilled down on and peeled the onion back, that this makes complete sense. It makes sense for the residents of the city of Woburn, so that we can offer them all of the services that they deserve. And we give them an environment that's welcoming and it's spacious, that, again, you can talk privately in some of these offices where currently you really can't. It's really tight. People are literally sitting on top of one another. I saw that right off the rip. I saw the convenience of the building location. I've also seen that by taking and possibly putting building services over there, engineering, conservation, you're kind of clustering them all together. It's almost like one-stop shop. That's convenient, so that when your contractors come in or people coming in for permits, it's a one-stop shop. Oh, go over to that department. Oh, they're over there. They're over there. It's convenient. And lastly, the price. Price for what you're gathering and what you're gaining, purchasing that building at 1.25. That's a good deal. That really is for that size building, the aesthetics of the building. It's a beautiful building. It has very, very, very nice curb appeal, and it blends well with our city hall as we sit. I am in support of this. It's taken me a couple months to get there. Some might say it's from drilling down. Some others might say it's because I'm thick as the ground. But I came to the conclusion after drilling down and doing all the research, this is a great opportunity, and I would hate to see it slip. So I am in support of this, sir, and I think it's it's going to be a great undertaking for our residents as well as the staff of the city hall. So I'm in complete support. Thank you, sir.
I just sent everybody the records retention schedule for the state into your city email. So it lists everything. It's about 70 pages long.
Councilor Campbell.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I'm sure many of us remember several years back, the building went up for sale. And I believe at the time, they wanted $750,000. Now, I don't remember how many years ago. Yeah, and I remember speaking to Mayor Galvin about it and, really encouraging him to purchase the building for all the reasons that we're talking about here. At the time, you know, he didn't want to move forward with that. I thought that was a real loss, that we didn't receive that building, for all, once again, for all the reasons that we're talking about here. So, do we need it? Yes, we absolutely need it. Once again, look at, we have boxes here in this room, and it's happening all over City Hall. My biggest concern was the 1.5 million. Were our taxes gonna go up? As we know, when the new tax rate goes into effect, there is gonna be a hardship because, for many residents, because our taxes are going up, and substantially, and for our seniors as well. So I didn't want that to happen again. But hearing that it's coming from the general stabilization fund, that's huge. So, and that we're not gonna lose our triple A rating to do it. I actually envision having some sort of walkway, a covered walkway. Yeah, but I've thought of this building for years, believe me.
We discussed that with the building inspector. If you do that, it triggers something about this building that we don't.
Oh, okay.
Right, so.
But couldn't you see it? Honestly,
Yes.
it's so close, it's so close. But anyway, I do think we need it. And at 1.5 million, I realize that it's only 1.25, and then we're using the rest to help repair the insides. I think that we would be crazy not to go forward with trying to purchase this property. And thank you for explaining about the friendly taking. Because I couldn't figure out why we wouldn't just go and purchase it, you know, instead of going the route of actually doing a taking. So, but that makes complete sense. And just quickly about the Wyman, only because it's been brought up, at least at this point, I'm completely against getting rid of that building. It's a historic building. I realize it could cost tens of millions to redo it, but that doesn't mean we have to redo it all right now. We could, it's something that has been such a prominent building in that area. And for the city to get rid of it, I think would be a real shame. But that's another discussion for another day. Yeah, I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Papalato. Thank you. So, I know we've had these discussions before, and I think you know where I stand in this, but I will say, it's a beautiful building, and you couldn't pick a better location. It's a no-brainer from that standpoint, but I always go back to, what is the effect on the taxes? And we've talked about this, and the stabilization fund, from what I understand, that's tax money. Right?
Where it came from.
Yep. So when we say it's not affecting future taxes, it is affecting the tax money that we've accumulated that put into this stabilization fund. So that's the first thing. Secondly, when you first brought this up, I know I asked, is what amount of space do we need? And I never got an answer. So maybe you might have unless I missed something.
I'm not sure of the question.
So when we say we need this space, I heard about, you know, cafeterias and different things, but is there a certain number of office space that we need for this, or?
For the break room, you mean?
No, to purchase this building, we're doing it for our needs, and it's the
I would answer it this way. We need at least this much more. At least this much more to function effectively in 2024 going forward.
Okay.
This building is a great step in the right direction. What might we need 5 years from now? I don't know yet.
Right.
I'm telling you, today, we need at least this much space.
And so you're thinking, in the future, there might be future needs.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised, but
Right.
I'm not, I wouldn't put my stake in the ground either way. right now.
Yeah, for what
Just
you
telling
know today.
At least this much to accommodate what's happening in this building right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I brought this up in, I think the council meeting is, I know we talked about remote workers, and I know there was a big poo-pooing of remote workers. Well, if you talk about morale boost, that's gonna give you a huge morale boost to allow people to work part-time remotely. And that will free up space, and I know not every position you can do that with, but there certainly are positions that you can do that with.
Well, we looked at that, and we didn't,
Okay,
to use your phrase, poo-poo it. We actually looked at it and talked to department heads. And there are very few functions in this building where you can effectively work remotely for any amount of, more than a day a week. Because you're collaborating not only with the public that walks in the door, but there's all sorts of interdepartmental collaboration that must occur. I mean, you guys see it, the Thursday meetings alone, that's the tip of the iceberg, the collaboration that happens between departments. And I can tell you from just the months I've been here, in-person collaboration is critical to so many of the things we have going on. So I'm not sure who you have in mind that you think could.
I don't have
work
anyone in
remotely.
mind, I'm just saying, we lived through the pandemic, and I was in the business world.
Yeah.
And we had to stand up collaboration tools.
Yeah.
You have that, you have already done that. Teams is a collaboration.
We do as much of that as we can, but I'm
Yeah.
telling you, I've walked the building, I've talked to the department heads.
Yeah,
I don't know anybody who can work remotely in any effective way that would have any dramatic impact on the space in this building.
okay,
Like, I wouldn't take away so-and-so's office and make it the mother's nursing room,
yeah.
because that person might be able to work remotely 1.5 a day a week.
I hear you loud and clear, but I will also say that we all said that before the pandemic hit, and you figure stuff out. Things, the dynamic of it changes when you
I
have to
think
change.
we also agree, or I would expect that we agree, that service in general did suffer during the pandemic, and work productivity and effectiveness was negatively impacted. So just because we did it when we had to survive, doesn't necessarily mean it's the right way to do it going forward.
But when you look at the way corporations are run, that's not going away ever.
But again, I think there's a distinction here that needs to be drawn. This is a public service entity.
Yeah,
Just stand on the city hall steps one day and watch the number of members of the public that come in one day.
yeah,
Hundreds,
yeah.
all the time, going to every department. For that person that they're going to see not to be there is an inconvenience to the public. And to tell them, you can, call him on the phone and describe your plans to him, and he'll try to imagine what you're describing. That's not an effective way of delivering the public service that we're entrusted with delivering.
But isn't the state doing some remote work as well?
I believe they are in some agencies, but I'm not sure how effective it is.
So I disagree. I think there's a way to make it work. It's not easy. It's tough to get
Well, as
over.
we begin our building use
Yeah.
subcommittee, if we do in fact get the authorization to purchase this, I would welcome any ideas on better ways of doing things.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I would love to be part of it. And the other thing I keep hearing about is we have all these paper, we have stacks of paper everywhere. And yeah, some of them you definitely need to keep. But there's a whole bunch of them that I can't imagine you need to keep every piece of paper that we have in this building. So I feel like there should be some push to digitalize some of this stuff,
Which we
some
have.
way, shape or
We're doing
form.
that.
We are going down to,
Yes.
I'm glad to hear.
I'm working on that.
Okay. I think those are the points I wanted to make. I totally understand where we're going, and if we're going to, and it certainly looks like we are going to, you picked a beautiful spot. Thank you.
You're welcome. Before we go to Councilor Viola, Councilor Demers, and Councilor Boone for the second time, if the chair could have a say in this. I'm gonna ask our local historian 2 questions. Planning Director Cashel, when was this building built?
30s, but you know,
Just a quick question.
I don't remember seeing that in John's job description.
Well, I know.
Resident historian of City Hall.
Second question, during the 1930s, and again, I'm asking the right guy here, your best estimate for the population of Woburn?
The population of Woburn in 1900 was 5,000 people. It really never grew that much. You know, it slowly grew up until World War II. So you're probably talking 12,000 people. The explosion of Woburn's population really happened after World War II. You know, and they had the GI Bill. There was a lot of money out there for building houses. And at one point in time, post-World War II, there were upwards of 1,000 houses being built in this town. There was a real growth spurt going on. You know, that whole baby boom generation. You know, and then you get into all the schools. You get all the schools that had to be done. I go over this with the mayor all the time. You know, Mayor Gill, 1960 through 1970. You know, he was putting sewer lines in, water lines in, multiple schools. I mean, the city was exploding with the population. And then, you know, we stayed in the high 20s, low 30s for a long time. And when I left here in 2001, there were 34, maybe 35,000. And, you know, 23 years later, we're at 41.
Thank you. So,
But just, can I bring one point up?
one point, I'm gonna keep you
Really,
brief.
what, you know, when I first was employed by the city as a planner in 1985, it was 85, 86, maybe 87, that building was proposed and it was for sale, $159,000. The city could have acquired that building at that time for $159,000.
You're stealing my thunder here.
And then they were talking a few years ago, 700, 1.5 now. That includes renovations, right? What's it gonna be 10 years from now? 2.5, 3? You don't know with the inflation factor, you know, and money diluting in value, but, you know, it's only going to get higher in price, right? It's only gonna get higher in price. Renovations are only gonna cost more money to renovate. And the population of the city is going to continue to grow. The demand of this building and the personnel necessary to effectively run the city are going to continue to grow. And here we have, and this argument's made, we have the most perfect location, you know, for an annex and a really beautiful building which was brought out. Nobody can argue with that. You know, and the stamp of approval, really hard to come by. My wife, we were down here one night, she's, the city can buy that? Oh my God, why aren't they gonna do that? You know, I said, well, they're working. So,
Thank you.
when she's happy.
I appreciate it. So, my 2 points was that this historical building has served us well. And we talk about history. Short of the library, I don't know of anything, maybe the Wyman School as well, but what history is in these hollow chambers that we have the luxury to sit in and conduct our business? I would hate as a old man sitting at home out of this world, looking at a council meeting and hear them say that the council then should have purchased that building next door, because now they've absolutely outgrown it and they have to move somewhere else. This has history. I would love to keep that.
In another point too, the police station, as the chief pointed out, that used to be here. That was the police department.
I was there
We
for
used to have
9
the-
years.
You used to have the district court here. Imagine if the district court was slammed in here still.
And
As years ago, when we had less of a population, you know, they have to have their own building.
Thank you.
That was the chief's office right there.
Yeah.
And my last point is we're talking about the service that we do for our citizens, our population. We gotta think the businesses that are so important to our tax rate. Just earlier here tonight, we took care of business with businesses. So we have to make sure that when a multi-million-dollar company wants to settle here in Woburn and conduct business, that they come through the doors, that they may very well be put off having a meeting under the stairs with the conservation. So, again, you only have one chance to make a good first impression. So all these things tie in. These comments that came up at this table tonight were excellent. But I just wanted to bring up those couple, and I could go on, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna turn it over to Council Viola for the second time.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Mayor, one follow-up question. Now, you've done the walkthrough over there. Has there been any talks with such like the IT department or police department for security upgrades over there that we'll need to do?
We've talked to Dave Maspinotti about what is needed. The good news is because it's so close, he said it's a pretty easy transition from an IT standpoint to bring them up to speed. We're already looking at upgraded security measures for this building, simply incorporate that over here.
That's what I was gonna ask, is where we're gonna be doing work here on security issues. Maybe we'll get a better deal doing both buildings together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Demis.
Thank you. Just wanted to touch base on the Wyman because it's in my ward and people have been talking about it this evening. So I do plan on having a community meeting with my ward, probably at the library, just to get feedback from residents, especially the direct abutters, because, a lot could happen there based on which way we go. So I just wanted to go on record stating that. With regards to work from home, as a state employee, Bill, I could chime in on this in terms of what they tried to do. So I work at the Massachusetts Information Technology Center in Chelsea. And they did a downsizing of office space, a numbering of cubicles, and a numbering of parking spots with the intent that there would be an online warehouse where we'd be able to go in and say, this is my date, let me see what desk is available and what parking spot on a limited site. They bailed on that right after the COVID bans and social distancing went away. So they actually wasted a lot of money on getting it ready for that shared space where you basically have to reserve your workspace to go in ahead of time.
But it's all about execution. If you don't have the right people executing.
No, definitely. But I just wanted to say that because, I outside of my job I would be visiting police departments to audit them for their use of our systems. Okay. We're not a forward-facing agency, so we can do everything from a phone call. We can do everything on Zoom or Microsoft Teams. Paying your tax bill has to be done in person. Reviews and conferences on plans where you need to physically see the plans where they might not have an electronic copy of the plan. We don't require it, I don't think. So those are those things that, we the work from home piece, if we required, electronic plans, we could be passing another cost on to the taxpayer or the applicant. Just some food for thought. I mean, I appreciate where you're coming from on that because in some instances it definitely works. I know it really involves the wherewithal of the employees meeting their obligations for that day while working from home as well. I mean, there's been some instances where there's been complaints where people have used that as a alternative form of childcare where they're working from home. And our telework agreement says it can't be used to be in place of taking care of one's family at home while working. So there's a lot that goes on. And it's also this collective bargaining connotation or implications as well when it comes to collective bargaining that you may not see in the private sector. So there's just some food for thought on that issue. But I think, I think this is a much more robust discussion than I thought we were going to have, and I plan on supporting the order. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Councilor Bruin?
Just briefly, I wanted to touch base on, because I respect everything you said, Bill, and the remote working, if that were something the city was considering, I probably wouldn't support it. And the only reason I say that is because we are, even the groups of people that aren't typically forward-facing, people want to come here to see that we're here. And it's happening in other service organizations, like I'll use Blue Cross for a perfect example. They told everyone back to work because there were so many complaints. They couldn't put up with it anymore. That's a huge organization. Talk about, forward facing when people need to go in to see them. And being a public building, I wouldn't be in favor, and I just wanted to say that, I wouldn't be in favor of sending everyone home just for office space. I think that it's nice that we have access to our public employees who the public is paying. They want to see them face to face, and you can pay your tax bill, just so you know, online. But if you have a lot of questions, you definitely are gonna come in and
I know people
talk
who
to
would
the powers that
refuse to
be.
pay online, but want to come in.
So, anyway, thank you.
You're welcome. Just from the chair, is there an appetite from the committee to open it to the public? I know there are some people who may want to speak.
Yes, I'll make a motion to open up to allow the public to speak.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Is there anyone here that would like to speak on this matter? Please step forward. Yes, sir. Pastor Freddie, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you so
Please
much.
just state your name and your address and what you'd like to say, sir.
Welcome.
Yeah, thank you so much. Well, my name is Freddie Bakuka. So I don't know if I have met some of you. I do not live in Woburn, although I'm working hard to change that. I still live in Boston. And as of about a year ago, I had the privilege and the honor of becoming the pastor of the First Church of Woburn next door. And I had the pleasure of meeting our new mayor. We pray for him. We pray for you all here at our church. And we, as you might have seen, we've been trying to revitalize the church and its place in the community. We've been working hard at restoring the building, and that's been coming along. This was one of my top priorities, that just the church building will make the town look nicer, and we've been working on that. So I didn't know about this meeting until yesterday. I was told that this will be happening, and so I decided to stop by. It was very informative for me to hear what's going on and why you're trying to acquire the building. And in many ways, it makes sense. I can feel the pain of the meeting happening on their staircases and so forth. So I totally get it, why you would, and if I was in the mayor's position, y'all's position, I would probably be trying to do the same thing. Just three things that I may just want to put for your consideration is, so before I knew anything about the city wanting to use that building or acquire it, we had a friendly relationship with the tenants that were there previously. So when I heard that they were moving out, actually, we mentioned to the tenant, to then relay that to the landlord, that we were actually considering starting a learning center, eventually turning it into a school, a faith-based school, or learning center to just invest in the children in our community. And the previous tenant, the insurance company, actually, they thought it was a terrific idea, and relayed that to the owner, who actually reached out to me to ask about our interest. Now, we were thinking of just leasing it. Now, none of that is for money. I am not taking a salary at the church. I have not made a penny from that. And the learning center is also, would be just for no other reason than to help the children. And so we have, had actually talked to, met some people who are willing to match dollar for dollar anything that we're going to have to allow children from lower income families to be able to be part of the learning center. They actually reached out to me recently to find out where that was, how that was going. So there's a lot of support for this. I hear from a lot of parents, and we may be doing things like after school programs and so forth, not just to invest, and with the goal of doing two things. One is to provide just quality education, as much as we can. I have friends, fellow alumni. I went to MIT. I have fellow alumni who were willing to come and spend time, invest what they know in the children. But at the same time, not just give them a great education, but also just teach character. And this is where the church comes in. I think, I don't have children yet, as some of you do. And I think, more than anything else that we can provide to in our society, I think we need to teach our children to be people of kindness, of integrity, of solid moral character. I think in our country, that's a real crisis that we're facing in that dimension. And so, the weird thing about this, our children, they are the most valuable assets we have. The future really belongs to them. And anything that we can do to invest in the children, I think, is a good investment. And especially if we have the opportunity to help those children who are, who normally wouldn't be able to afford a private school education and so forth. We have organizations that are willing to help pay for some of the match dollar for dollar tuition for some of those students. That will be a great thing. So that's just one thing. The other thing that I may mention about it, if I may, is just we have the historian here. So I'm sorry I missed his name. John. So you all know the story of the history of Woburn, that this is the church that started the town of Woburn and Burlington and Winchester as well, and others. And but not only that, the church actually is gave the land on which that building was built, and also gave the land on which this building, by the way, I found out. Both of those. So, over time, the church, because it was dwindling down in numbers, the church had to sell off different things in order to survive. And so I believe it was 1939, but don't quote me on that.
1926, that was built.
Oh, 1926. Oh, okay. So they sold the land because the church needed money, and there are other things that they've sold over time. So, and in the past, the church was in a situation where they were, just trying to survive. But we're in a different, by the grace of God, hoping we're in a different season right now where that is changing and turning around. Where it would make sense if the building was to go to anyone, that it will revert back to the entity that sold it away if it wants it back. I think that would also be a natural transition. And also, the last thing I would mention that I may not have been mentioned here, just for you to discuss in your logistics, is parking. I do know for sure that the parking's been an issue here, and the previous tenants of that building actually, they leased parking from us, from the church. And I have seen, this has been on my super long to-do list of things that I've been meaning to reach out to someone at City Hall to discuss about the parking, because I do see a lot of City Hall workers parking there, and people have told me, they're parking there. I said, that's fine, that's okay, let them park. At some point, we're gonna have a conversation about that. But, we've been using a lot of our parking on the south side with a lot of the construction worker, but as well as when we have some meetings. But very soon, we're gonna be in a position where we would likely start to need some of the parking on the north side as well. So that's just one of the things to factor in, that as you move more people into that building, if you'll be hiring more people, having more employees, you're likely gonna need more parking. And, and I cannot guarantee that our parking on the north side is going to be available, and so that's just one thing to keep in mind. But I totally get why the city hall would want to acquire that, and if I were again in the mayor's position, I would want to do the same thing, but this is just for your consideration to think about and, you know, maybe I would say to pray about.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Purdy.
Thank you.
Make a motion to return to the regular order of business.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. The third item on,
Mr. President, we haven't moved on.
okay.
I'll make a motion that the order to authorize the mayor to enter a friendly taking of 6 Common Street be sent out to pass.
Second.
So motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you.
8-1.
Thank you.
Thank you. The third item on list to take care of is audit and review options to improve downtown parking.
Mr.
Mayor
President,
Concan.
sure, if I could, I saw this item on the agenda, I heard it mentioned in the council meeting the other night, I just wanted to give a quick update, and I'll turn it over to John for a quick update. I'll be very quick, quicker than mine even. I just wanted to let the council know we are in fact already working on this. We have entered into a contract with Ty and Bond, same consultants who are helping us with the downtown traffic improvement project. They have already been tasked, and John has copies of it, with understanding and get our arms around the downtown parking situation and exploring ways to improve it. And at this point, I would say everything is on the table. So John has some information for you. I'll turn it over to him now.
Make
but I
a
just
note to
want
accept this.
to let you know that we are actively on the same page, pursuing the same goal.
The motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
What I'm passing on here is the scope of services that
You
outline
have
the work
extra, you sent to me now.
Thank you, sir.
that Ty and Bond, a long-standing engineering company, relative to the downtown area. As some board members, council members may remember, in 2012, they did a parking management study of downtown. And that didn't, well, it wasn't complete. A lot was accomplished, but it wasn't completed. Here we have an opportunity at really no cost to the city. It's state funded, with the good fortune of acquiring grant funds from our state representative. So the money that's being utilized to conduct this particular study, and it's an update of the 2012 parking analysis of downtown Woburn and the environs around downtown Woburn. That'll be all updated, all highlighted in the scope of services. It's going to be a quick study. It's not going to take, months or go into years to accomplish. I'm going to be working aggressively to have them complete the study as pointed out in the scope of services. And we should, in the coming months, have a real good idea, an up-to-date of the parking analysis and what we can do to really improve what we have. Part of the study is to try to incorporate the most up-to-date parking management features into the study, bring it up to date to today's standards. One of the things I also handed out tonight is the parking map that identifies the existing parking lots.
Do we have any more? How many are we
Did
missing?
everybody get a copy of this?
No.
No, we don't have enough.
Okay, can we?
How many more do we
I
need?
don't have the map. Yeah.
Okay, if we could
We
just
can
get a
share.
couple more.
Yeah, I'll just point out, everybody knows these locations. Walnut Street parking lot, that's the lot, just,
I'm gonna make a, excuse me,
Yeah.
sorry, Director.
we
I'm
make
gonna
a
make a
can we-
motion that we have a copy sent to us electronically from the planning
Second.
board office.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
And one more motion, I'll make a motion that the city council receive a copy of the 2012 parking management study, just for context, via email.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Sorry, Director.
No problem.
Thank you,
So
President.
Walnut Street parking lot, then we have the newest parking lot, the Strand Theater parking lot in between Union Street and Campbell Street. Everyone knows the story with that. It's a recent parking area. Then just north of that, you have the Main Street, Hovey Street lot. That was just, not refurbished, but cleaned up the perimeter. I don't know if people did notice that. That was done by our DPW. You have the Library Street lot going down to the south end of the Main Street area, and then the Abbott Street parking area. There really services the parking needs on any given day with the activities of Library Field, but also comes in very handy for the courthouse, primarily for overflow parking needs. And then you have the Abbott Street upper lot that directly abuts Pleasant Street. And again, that pretty much services the library parking needs in any given day, and also supplements parking needs for the courthouse. And then we have City Hall parking lot, which services needs of everybody and continually throughout the day and into the evening hours. That's really the supplemental parking area for a lot of the eateries and the activities in downtown in the evening hours, and it's really come in quite handy. The fortunate thing with downtown Woburn, it's relatively flat elevation-wise. It isn't a matter of having to climb, up a hill to park somewhere and then go down a hill. We have that geological feature that really helps out. If you've had to deal with steep downtown areas up and down hills, that's really not a convenient thing. And then we do have an emerging parking area. It was part of a really good cleanup effort spearheaded by the mayor of the men's court. I don't know if people have still not had the opportunity to go up back to the men's court to see what the DPW was able to accomplish up there. You just have to look at or remember what that site was. That was nothing but a dump site. And now it's all cleaned up. It has everything prepped for the makings of a real nice additional parking area, and perhaps up to 50 parking spaces. And all that work that was done up there was done in-house and at no cost to the city, because it was state funded, and it was monies that we needed to spend by June 30th of this year. And I happened to, come in March and find this pot of money that needed to be spent. And I don't think, the city has endeavored a task that's come in so quite handy with $30,000 to create what's been created up there. And I went up there today, and the lights are operational too, so that it's lighted for night activities of parking. Hopefully that's the only thing that's going on. But it really does and will prove to supplement much needed parking in the downtown area. So that's what that's all about. And Mayor's been a strong supporter of this. And, we have a great opportunity in the coming months to really formalize the parking area, improve city-owned property for parking, parallel parking that exists right now in Mans Court, but to improve that, to include handicap and possibly EV charging stations too. So that's, I think, a great improvement for that area, and it would create an opportunity for pedestrian access, handicap pedestrian access to this Mans Court parking area. And again, 50 parking spaces, minimal cost, all done in-house. It didn't take an act of God, it just took some determination and goodwill and a good ground crew in the DPW. They came through for us.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilor Demers.
So yeah, just to provide context, that's in between the old cemetery on Park Street and Magazine Hill.
Correct. Right.
And originally,
Backside of Max.
historical context, I know that there were proposals before the council years ago about the demolition of Magazine Hill, and there was some concerns that it would negatively impact the the burial ground.
Yeah, the buildings.
And the State Historical Commission basically said to do not, but cease and desist. So that is a great something out of something that we thought was a dead end, I would say.
And I'd like to add, I mean, that really fell flat in its face, that whole multi-year effort. Redevelopment Authority was heavily involved in that, the state, MBTA. And it really fell flat because it just got out of control cost-wise.
Right.
And here we have a little bit of imagination and cooperation and everybody working together. And, look what $30,000 can do as opposed to,
Right.
a $7 million, $8 million project. And it just got too costly. You try to look at this stuff as how much is it going to cost to create a parking space? It gets to a point where.
Right. Would that possibility be under the scope of this study?
Yeah.
So are they gonna basically provide comments on what the projection?
Yeah,
on that
we're
would
asking
be?
them to look at all of this,
Okay, great,
including the Magazine Hill
great,
in progress.
great.
And the other thing to keep in mind, Taiwan, they're also our engineering firm for the downtown.
Yeah,
improvement
I was gonna mention that I think that that's a shrewd move in the sense of they're gonna be working hand in hand, so one doesn't impact the other negatively.
Yeah.
John, do we have a number on the amount of spaces that are in Woburn, the Woburn Center District municipal lots? The total space,
Yeah.
total spaces?
Yeah, those numbers in the 2012 study.
So
One
I see
thing
on the map here, it says 89.
in the.
Am I reading that right?
89 and what?
It says existing parking on this map?
89,
In the legend, it says existing parking 87 and proposed parking 69. So is that,
Right up here.
Oh, here it is.
I'm just curious
I
as to
think
what,
that has to do with the on-street parking.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
was-
okay.
That's
I'm just curious as to what our existing parking supply is downtown.
That's actually one of the questions I'd like to get answered from. Mr.
Okay,
Kraft.
so that's part of it. We didn't have that number from the previous study, it just,
What we have,
okay.
how effective are we using it,
Mhm.
and what are the better ways of utilizing what we have?
Mhm.
Like I said at the beginning, it's in my mind, everything's on the table.
Right.
Find the best maximizing the use of what we have.
And bear with me, I'm just spitballing some questions because I wasn't here for the first study. And basically our number one goal is always balancing businesses and then people that live in our downtown in terms of residential parking. And maybe this would be a better question later on for, the staff that's doing this at Tybon, but are they gonna be considering, the amount of people that are allowed in these restaurants, like the the fire limit, just to
I think
use
they'll-
those numbers?
You'll
I
probably
mean,
get a sense of what we can expect for use. and
Right.
That's where it would come from.
I'm only saying this because we've had consultants give us traffic studies that were based on similar downtowns to Woburn, as opposed to, how many restaurants we have,
I think they'll give us,
how many units of living quarters we have in downtown.
they'll give us an estimate of what they believe to be the need for parking. And
Okay.
that's driven by the things you're talking.
Okay, I just want to make sure that those are going to be in consideration, because I think that's literally the crux of the overall problem that we're dealing with.
One of the deliverables that's being discussed, that they're gonna work towards producing is the possibility of resident sticker parking, employee sticker parking. But all of this is totally up for public input, especially with the businesses. We're gonna have public meetings on this. Nothing is set in stone. We're just going right now to update what was done in 2012 and try to reap some traffic analysis benefits that we can actually implement and get under control. When I was growing up in Woburn, I know some people here will also remember, there was a meter system. There were meters everywhere, Walnut Street. Even with Nanny Goat Hill there, had a perimeter of parking meters. And I remember every Sunday morning on the way to church, the police officers would be emptying the parking meters with the machine, the two-wheel dolly.
The little
you know.
wheelie.
Yeah,
Oh, my knee pushed.
yes. So, you know, and I don't know if we'll get into parking meters or whatnot, but that's a source of funding, if it proves, favorable to the city's overall review of this parking analysis. You know, parking fees can go a long way to helping to improve the city in many respects. You know, everybody knows, you know, how does Hampton Beach have such great fireworks once a week up there? Well, it's from the parking fees. That's how that stuff comes about. But, you know, there's a lot of funding and for good benefits for the city that can result from a city that has a well-managed parking program in place in its downtown. And that's what we're gonna try to find out with this. We're gonna really try to get us back into a year in a better managed parking environment for our downtown, especially taking into consideration the limited number of parking spaces we have with the ever-growing business environment and multifamily environment that is going to happen. We do see it right now with these multiple applications coming in. You know, we want downtown to become a real vibrant and even more important area of our city than it is right now. And it's come a long way, baby. Hate to use that phrase, but it's truly the name of the game. In 1985, when I started as a planner, all empty storefronts down there. It looked like, you know, not aesthetically pleasing environment, not a business-friendly environment, not a pedestrian-friendly environment. And, you know, just a lot of things not going for it. There's so much going for it downtown Woburn right now. And a lot of that has to do with the redevelopment authority focusing in on that area of our city as an important area of our city to improve upon and have activity with. The redevelopment authority has taken up, you know, the lead on that over the last 30 years. And again, it's come a long way. It has a long way to go, and I think we can all be part of it, and one part of it is this analysis. Thank you.
Councilor Viola.
Just one more question through the chair. If we could Auditor Doherty, do we have a database that shows how many spots have been basically bought into in the downtown parking fund?
I can get you.
That'd be great. And the financials with that as well. I'll make that in the form of the
No
motion.
money has been spent from it, so.
Right.
that's what we.
Yeah, I just want the amount of spots and the current balance in the downtown parking fund. And I'll make that in the form of a motion.
I second it.
A motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes.
Thank you, Mr. President.
You're quite welcome. Councilor Viola.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just one thing I want to bring up and to urge caution, if we do decide to do meters, Medford just recently, they had meters. They had them for about 6 to 8 years and they actually got rid of them because they found out that a lot of businesses were being affected, that people weren't shopping there, people weren't going to restaurants because people did not want to pay the meters in that area and it was affecting them negatively. And I'd hate for that to happen here, so.
Yeah, just to be clear, when we say everything's on the table, we mean it's on the table.
Right.
It's not decided.
Yep.
Stickers, meters, you know, what does that look like?
Right.
You went down that road, and you get the first hour free. There's all sorts of outcomes, and it would be up to us to figure out the
Correct.
best one for our city.
Yep.
So everything's on the table, but nothing is.
Right, I just want to bring that so everybody could hear that because it did happen recently. And so it is fresh in my mind because I do know a couple businesses that did suffer in Medford because of it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Fawula.
Just out of the institutional knowledge file, as we head down this road, maybe on the public comment or wherever it would fit in, I think Officer Michael Piazza that's retired and Officer Mario Pascuccio that's still out there have intimate knowledge of what goes on every minute out there. And there's no way they could do a presentation, but it'd be worth an Italian sub at Mario's. To hear what they have to say, particularly Michael, because he took that very serious for a real long time. And when the program died, the other study just died, he took it real personal. But he took notes and studied and counted and sat and watched and there's a ton of institutional knowledge out there, and I don't know the right way to interject
We
that.
can make sure that Ty and Bond connect with Mike and Mario.
And Michael still works for the city as a contract employee in the police
We
department.
want the best outcomes, so whoever has the best.
Just,
Want to make that.
just briefly, he wrote me up when I was younger in the city hall lot, so I just want to emphasize he took that pretty serious.
And I'm not trying to interfere, I just think that.
To lead to a better outcome.
The thing, one thing is downtown parking is monitored pretty well too. It's all a matter of not having a bunch of people parking all day long, taking up spaces, needlessly. The turnover ratio is really what's needed. 1 hour parking, 15-minute parking. That program in itself, well managed, really helps out businesses, if you have people just planted there, and that used to be a big problem, I don't see that being the problem. It's almost self-maintained now. No one's getting away with that. Just having the finger being pointed out.
Just from the chair, I know different communities that have, they're not called meters anymore, they're the boxes where you can use credit cards, you can go online. Many of them have free for the first 15 minutes. So if you want to run in, get your dry cleaning, pick up a sandwich, the first 15 minutes is free. Just because I know that's going to be one of the big burning questions. Question from the chair on that grant. How much was that grant that we got?
For this particular
Yes.
effort, it was 45,000.
45,000. And that's typically enough money to do a good study like this.
Yeah, there's provision if it gets a little more than what.
When that came from State Rep Haggerty.
That's within, go ahead.
No, he had given us a downtown improvement package.
Right.
And this is a piece of that. Some of the other things you've seen out there, including the magazine Hill Work, came from that overall.
Just want to acknowledge it and say thank you.
Yeah, it was a
Every
great help.
bit helps.
And the other thing I gotta bring up here too, wouldn't be able to keep the pace of all of the things going if it wasn't for my staff. Casey's been totally instrumental in getting this organized and keeping it on path. The mayor has us really hopping a lot of things.
I've seen Casey firsthand, how hard she works and the great work she gets
Yeah, the
done.
whole team, Casey and Karen, and just on a totally apropos of nothing. Side
The whole
note,
team.
our grant writer just produced $125,000 grant this afternoon. We'll give you more details on that.
Excellent.
So the whole team is clicking very well, led by Joe.
I
This
mean,
is all good news.
they're chasing after a lot of money, and, everybody is working together. The mayor, finds opportunities, and we just run with them. Did everybody notice, the president's efforts too? We put in those pedestrian stanchions
did.
out there, and
Sure did.
we're hearing a lot of positive feedback already.
Thank you. Well, again, it was through the WRA, and a lot of people made it happen. And I can't think of anything more important than our residents' safety. And it was really important to get something done downtown. It's just a small step in the right direction, and a great opportunity for me to say thank you to everyone that made it happen, so. Councilor Boone.
Yeah, just quickly, so, it looks like in this contract that they're willing to start 3 weeks from notice to proceed. So if the council, for all intents and purposes, says proceed, I mean, I don't think you need us.
No, we're
But
proceeding.
This is
but a vote
FYI.
of confidence is
Yes.
always appreciated.
And I'll make a motion to, at some point, but, I know you don't need it, but, so is it the plan to proceed right away? Because 3 weeks is great, that's not like government time, that's like, I mean, we can say 6 weeks, but still, that's good, right? Yeah.
Time is money with these guys.
Councilor Papalato.
That was really good.
I'm thrilled to see this. I think this is a great step because it's a big problem down there. And then you always say, we don't have a parking problem, we have a parking management problem. And it looks like this is to address that. So this is awesome. But I did want to comment on the redevelopment authority that I'm the liaison for. you guys do a fantastic job. And if you look, since you've arrived, and I must say that since you arrived, that thing's gone from 0 to 100. And it's really great to see. It really is.
Yeah, I'll tell you, downtown area has been as close to me as, my family for travel. I grew up in Union Street, like.
It's the passion that you have that pushes you forward.
Yeah, there's a lot of history there, too.
And what you did with that parking up in Man's Court area, it happened like that.
Yeah, but-
Maybe it didn't, but it felt like it did.
It did take 4 mayors, and this guy said, yeah, we're gonna do it.
You got it done. I take my hat off, because things don't typically move that fast sometimes. That moved fast.
Yeah, I'm good, thanks.
Oh, yeah.
Councilor DeMambro.
So, I love this, and I love any exploration on how we can make parking better, Woburn Center. My question is, when they do the study on this, how much of a deep drill do they do on the existing cars that are parked up there? Cars that are possibly there for 2, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, a week or two, that really don't move? And my second part of that is, one of their ideas might be, I'm just assuming they could restripe for compact parking. Would they go as far as saying, you guys need a parking garage?
See, this is, really good, important point, which you just brought out. When I first came back in March, I thought it was a campground there. We had a Class A camper, I think he was spending the winter there, instead of Florida. Probably broke down here. Anyway, it did move out, and we haven't seen it since, but, yes, that will be part of this. And, we haven't, actually, I should have brought this up earlier. This Thursday, at 3 PM, City Council Chambers, we're having a kickoff for this particular study. So if you have time, you want to come by, Casey made sure she put this in writing for me. Yeah, this Thursday at 3 PM, and we're all going to be there, and this will be the kickoff meeting. One of definitely several meetings. There's going to be a lot of questions posed by the engineers to the downtown business community, residents. We really need a lot of input on this, and that's one of the more important input aspects of this, that we should be able to really improve the results of this study by, doing a complete inventory of how these spaces are being used, how they're being ill-used, improperly used, and how we can clean that up. Put our hands around it and solve it. I remember we used to have a big problem in the Walnut Street parking lot. I haven't really witnessed it lately, but, everybody, just parking their buses. One got away with it, and, if it's good enough for him, I can do it too. And it was a bus depot. It's kind of, it really wasn't what we really need that parking lot to be. We need that parking lot to be as efficiently used as possible.
And will they go as far as saying, we have to restripe, or we think that they'll go all the way to possibly a parking garage if need be?
We went down that route. There was a parking garage planned for Walnut Street.
There's a set of plans around for.
Yeah, and again, it became cost prohibitive,
But to your point, we told them, everything's on the table. Come back with your best ideas.
No, I love
They're
that.
not obviously gonna make us do anything. It'll
Understandable.
be for us, all
Right.
of us to decide
Understandable.
what's the best approach.
And I thank you, Mayor, and I thank you, Director
This is
Cashel,
really
for all the work
a
on this
We're all
and making
gonna
this
be
priority
involved
one,
in this.
because it is very, very important, especially to our businesses down there. With all the restaurants and stuff, it's hard to go to a restaurant if you can't find parking, so I appreciate everything. Thank you.
Councilor Campbell.
I would just like to say, just briefly, that I am so happy how transparent this whole administration is, and how you are exploring so many different options, say on this particular thing on parking, and then you're actually coming to us for our opinion, which once again really didn't happen, at least in my view, the last administration. So I really want to thank you for doing that. Because then we're all in it together, and we're all trying to help the city. So thank you very much.
You're still not getting a covered bridge or whatever that you.
No, that's fine.
You know, the other thing I want to bring out is the traffic commission, you know, and I always wanted to be part of that, and I'm a member of it, but there's so much experience on that. And the police department really comes to the fore every meeting we have, and they do lend their, you know, face-to-face, hands-on approach. And Bill's our chairman, and that's another committee that's really stepping it up and helping out. And, well, Chief, you're on that committee too, right?
Which one?
Traffic committee.
Yeah, no, I just go.
And the other,
Near and dear to my heart.
the other plug I want to make, this guy is the one that's making the transparency happen, and it's his, you know, it's his administration, and he wants it to be open.
Yeah.
We are all, we're what makes this city work, you know, and we need all the input and volunteerism and everything else. You guys were on the rain the other day collecting the tires and the batteries.
Yeah, so much fun.
You almost hooked me into it, but I had to get in here.
Anything else in this matter? What's the will of the committee?
I think,
I don't think that's.
Yeah.
I think it's leave it
Late
to
on the
committee,
table.
and we'll periodically give you updates.
I think that's the best.
I'll second that.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion and a second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Thank you, gentlemen.
Don't forget, it's 3 o'clock on Thursday.
Is it?
All are welcome.
I'll be in the 103 degree heat. Should we do it? Should we do it? And let's start. Down at
You're back in good graces if it's any good.
What's that?
You're back in good graces.
Until I get too expensive for them, yeah. All right, I'd like to call to order the Committee on Ordinance, Charter, and Rules. Serving as chair is myself, Councilor Demers. On the committee with me are Councilor Toro, Councilor Mercer Bruin, Councilor Ferrulo, and Councilor DeMambro. Is there a motion to dispense with the reading of the previous meeting?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
First item on the agenda is an order amending the Woburn Municipal Code Title II, Administration and Personnel, by adding section, Roman numerals kill me.
62.
62, thank you, Building Feasibility Department, that in cursive went by the way of the dodo, thank you, I appreciate that. So we have this evening, Mayor Concanon and Attorney Salvati from the Solicitor's Office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this item is essentially a request that we amend the municipal code by recognizing a situation that we need to address. We're asking item 2 create what we would call a building feasibility department. That was our best attempt at trying to term this, and as we begin to discuss it, if you have a better name for it, I'd be all ears. But I think building feasibility kind of covers the gist of the spirit of what we're about to ask you for. The companion item number 3 would obviously be establishing the position and a salary that goes with it. And then later on in finance, if so inclined, you'd have a transfer of funds to actually fund the position. So the reasoning behind this request to amend the municipal code. Right now, City of Woburn counted the schools, just for the purpose of this discussion, about 24, 25 buildings that we, all of us here, are responsible for. Many of them we're still paying for in outstanding bond payments. Others may be paid off, but there are still costs that go with it. And the long and short of it is, there's, say, 24 buildings that we are obligated to take care of and use wisely. On the school side, recently, in the last 10 or 15 years, they have what they've called a director of facilities position. it was Roy Robley at one point, then it was Dave Dunkley, and now it's Lenny Byrne. And that position has a couple of roles to go with it. You know, there's the day-to-day operation, which, you know, they have a custodial and maintenance staff that ultimately does report up to the incumbent Lenny Byrne. That position also has more of a forward-looking, I'll say a 15,000-foot level view of long-term plans for, uses for, and needs of those 10 school buildings. That said, even though they have that position filled and have had it for a while, they still felt the need at the school department to go outside and hire a consultant to give them a better understanding of the path forward for all of their buildings. That's why I said, in my opinion, Lenny's perspective is roughly 15,000 feet, just to use an analogy we're probably all familiar with. And then it's the 30,000 foot view, long-term, that they felt like they needed help to get that view of what's happening with their buildings. So that's on the school side. On the city side, we don't really have anything like that. The 10 years I was on the council, I started to gain a better understanding of what the needs were, what we had in place, and what we still needed to be doing. I think I was under the impression that things are getting done. Nothing is, blowing up. So I guess it's okay. We must be doing an adequate job. And part of that was actually to the credit of the people we had in certain positions. When we had Tucker Quinn over at the DPW, and now, then most recently, before he left to go to schools, we had Lenny Burnham over there. They were making things happen. They were scrambling and just trying to get things done. So if you called from the police station about a boiler sounding funny, somehow Lenny, Tucker before him, would somehow scramble to make the boiler stop making noises. So when the boiler stopped making noises, I guess the problem's okay. That's probably the 5,000 foot level. We've never really had anybody at the 15,000 foot level on the city side. Alone, that 30,000 foot view that I think we're probably in need of at this point in 2024. So 10 buildings on the school side are being looked at. The 14 or so buildings on the city side, including the building we're in, I can tell you from having sat in the seat up there for 8 months, nobody is looking at these 14 municipal buildings. They're not. The police chief listens for the boiler and looks up at the roof every now and then and looks to see if there's a leak and maybe checks to see if there's any lights flashing on the panels. But he's the police chief. We want him thinking about police things. Fire chief is in the same boat. And I'm looking at the chief now. I can't imagine how many hours of every one of your days with building stuff. And again, now we're talking maybe at the 10 to 15,000 foot level. But even then, police chief, the fire chief, the superintendent of the water department, the librarian, they're not looking 30,000 foot. They're just kind of keeping their head above water, making the boiler stop making noises, and maybe looking out a year or two for their capital budget on the next big thing that might bite them. It's 2024. We've got 24 buildings across the city. 10 school buildings are somewhat being looked at. The 14 municipal buildings, they're not. The current structure calls for public buildings to be under the purview for maintenance purposes of the DPW. And the way it's structured is we've got a DPW superintendent. He doesn't do it. We've got a deputy in the job description of the 17 or 19 things that deputy is responsible to do. One of those 12.5 things is be responsible for all those 14 buildings. That person can barely respond to the people. That person is not doing long-term analysis of our buildings in terms of use and capital improvements and foreseeing the next big thing that needs to be addressed. I can tell you, there's nobody doing that. I think we need to have somebody doing that. I think it's long overdue. And Charlie reminds me all the time of all the bond payments we're making. So we're paying a whole lot of money on buildings that we're not even really looking at. And that worries me. I know this is an ask. I know it's a request to amend the code, add a department. Just for the record, it's a department one out of the gate. And I know it's a salary, it's an amount of money. I know that's a big ask. I wish I didn't have to come down here. I wish we already had somebody overseeing all of our buildings. But we don't, we need to. What we put in front of you here is basically it's not even a template, but it's the approach we took when the city created an IT department. We hired a guy and we created a department of one and said, we gotta get our foot in the door and have somebody who oversees this stuff, who can get their arms around it. And they're not out there banging nails or painting things. They're just taking a look at what we have and advising us on what we need to do next. And I think this is the next logical step. Create a department of one, have that person begin the process of better understanding what is out there, because not knowing if the roof is gonna fall in is not comforting. If it's gonna fall in, we need to know. Might be bad news to know it, and it may cost money to have to fix it, but not knowing it doesn't help, doesn't do anyone any favors. And right now, we don't have anybody in city government whose sole purpose is actively gaining knowledge and advising on the status of it. So again, I know it's an ask. I don't like having to do it, but I think it's our responsibility to address the fact that we have a gaping hole in responsibilities for what is probably our biggest asset, our real property buildings. Again, many of which we're still paying for. And it's like, it's like continuing to make your car payment without changing your oil. You're just setting yourself up for a problem. So I understand that this is an ask. I figured this would be a discussion. We would get it all out there. But I can tell you that the fact that the responsibility I'm describing is one of many, 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 many responsibilities of one person tells me that they're not giving it the full attention it requires. How could they possibly? So that's why we're here. And again, I viewed it as a starting point in a discussion, so I'm sure you'll have questions.
Councilor Papalato. I totally agree we need this position. Is this position to oversee the schools and the city side, or is it, what's the
It's a
deal?
great question. We talked about this a little bit before. As it currently stands right now, state law requires that if a school department in a city wants to allow its municipality to oversee its facility, it must take a vote in the affirmative, and the city council must take this. There's a chapter 7, I'd have to look it up again, it's in here. There's a chapter and section that requires a vote of the school committee and city council, and then we can begin the process. So right now, out of the gate, no, because we haven't done that.
Yeah.
And I've had those initial discussions with the school committee. We started them during the budget process. Mr. President was with us while we were talking budget and ways to save money and be more efficient. We began the discussions about a combined building facilities department. But until those other steps happen, this would be city side.
Okay, so what comes to mind, the reason I'm asking that is that's just to oversee 14 buildings. And I question, is that a full-time, everyday position that needs to be filled? Or is it possible to do kind of what the school side did, put some kind of allotment out there that you bring someone in from time to time that already has expertise built up on what's the latest and greatest, and you have an allotment of money to tap into to bring that consultant in.
That's an option. I would suggest, though, that the amount of money it costs to hire that entity is probably 4 years' salary that we're talking here. Just a piece of the answer. The other piece of the answer is that report that's produced from that consultant that comes in periodically needs to be handed to somebody to digest and do something with on the city level. And we don't have that person. So I've actually thought about that, but it's my opinion, my recommendation to you that because of the number of buildings we currently have on the city side, the 14, it is a full-time position. And if we do go the full road, which I'd like to see us do, it'll absolutely be a person who's overseeing city side.
Right, I mean, I think that would be a perfect solution because you've got 24 buildings to look after. And it feels to me, just looking at that on a day-to-day basis, that's more of a full-time position than looking over 14.
I would respectfully suggest that 14 is, but certainly to your point, 24 most definitely.
Thanks.
Councilor Zabron.
Oh, thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm struggling with this one a lot. I understand the need, I understand the need to keep up with the buildings that we have, it's very important. But, right, I don't see the reason we have to do it today. I would be more comfortable if we had a better sense where we're gonna be with our tax rate. And maybe continue the discussions about how this plays out, because no matter how you slice it, $135,000, that person's gonna have all the benefits and all those other things which play into the cost of this, right? I'm concerned about it staying a staff of one. That would be very difficult for a person to manage 14 buildings without having any staff at all. I mean, let's be reasonable, right? And they're still gonna need a consultant. So I'm open to hearing about it, but I can't support it now. I really want to see where we're at in November with the tax rate. I can't do it today.
Councilor DeMambro.
Mayor Concanon, I've been thinking about this, and I have some experience with facilities. My way of looking at this, and you and I have had this conversation, and I believe this wholeheartedly. You own property and you don't maintain it for the course of 30 years, you will tear that property down and you will have to rebuild it. And I think that's the problem we're having. You need somebody that's got to be eyes and boots on the ground, looking at these buildings on a continuous basis, because when you have structures that were built in 1932, 1926, 1968, 69, they need to be looked after. And being reactive, we are finding on the school side, we are faced with a serious problem with some of our school buildings. That I can say again, being on the BCPC, it's expensive at $1,000 a square foot. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars to replace these buildings. I don't think that $135,000 to have someone not only bird dog the buildings, but facilitate what is involved in coordinating the work and the estimates and the bids and the contractors and so on and so forth, so they can envelop that and put it in a portfolio to bring it to you and say, Mayor, this is what it's going to cost. And then you have somebody with boots on the ground, and I am saying that heavily. I'm weighing heavily on that. I don't want to see somebody in a suit and tie hiding somewhere, working out of an office or via home, via Zoom. This guy would have to be boots on the ground, or girl would have to be boots on the ground and be constantly throughout the city, analyzing and coordinating. And if that would be the case, I would support this because I truly believe, and again, and I say it to anyone that owns property, don't do anything to your house for 30 years. See what happens. You will be knocking the house down and you will have to rebuild it if you can afford to do so. And I think with something like this is a preventative measure that offers that managerial, not only managerial, but a hands-on approach to policing our buildings, to making sure they're in working order, not only the building itself as the structure, but for our employees and our residents that come and use these buildings for educational purposes, business purposes, recreational purposes. I think this is a part of doing business. And I understand why you're asking for this, and at this point, I'm supportive of it.
What you described is how it should work, and that's what I would envision too. That the person boots on the ground every day, all day, to your point, Bill, about a full-time job. Yes, absolutely. And the other point you alluded to, we've got the Lenny Burnham at the school side. If this position were to be implemented, I would expect those two to be talking every day, all day. And we've talked to Lenny, we've talked to the school department, although the committee isn't ready just yet to take the vote we talked about under the state law. It's hard for anyone to argue against efficiencies, and Lenny is on board with the notion of having a counterpart and finding ways to be more efficient with vendors and contractors, planning work more efficiently, making sure that if Scally Plumbing's gonna go to the Reeve School to fix a toilet, and we've got one that needs work here, don't do two work orders, one this week, one next week, do them at the same time. Simple things like that can be,
Sir, I'm a full advocate for proactive as opposed to reactive, because we're finding that kicking cans down the road isn't working. And we're all facing a pile of cans that we are now trying to address one at a time, dozens at a time, I should say. And we're at that point. And I think this would help eliminate some of those cans from getting kicked down the road, or, things coming to us, being presented to us and saying, look, there's no more Band-Aids. It needs major surgery, or we have to look into possibly a rebuild. And as of right now, it's extremely costly. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Councilor Demers, at the appropriate time, can you open it up to the
I make a motion to open that up to the full council.
I'm on the committee. I
Yeah,
have
so
another
at the
one.
appropriate-
Yeah,
back
sorry,
up, Councilor.
sorry.
My
Follow-up
apologies.
question.
Yes, ma'am.
Perhaps I misheard, but Mayor, I thought you described this as a, this, we're not talking about people going out hammering things, and this is like a high level, looking at all the buildings and pulling everything together. So that's what I heard. I didn't.
so there's the 5,000 foot level, the people doing the work. We have a couple of those at TTW.
We could use more.
Could certainly use more, I agree, we could.
Yeah.
And then you've got the next level, which is the Lenny level. And then you've got the 30,000 foot. We have nothing above the 5,000. So I'm looking for somebody who can occupy that space.
Right.
There should be times when that person is interacting closer to the weeds. But the big picture is non-existent. There's nobody, and there hasn't been for a long time, advising us, this body and me, what's the next big thing that's coming that we should be aware of. We don't have that. And to your point about, maybe why now, or maybe now's not the time, maybe wait a little bit longer. I would just ask you, who is in charge of this stuff now? Like, who do you think is responsible for this stuff tomorrow? You'll probably say me.
Well, also DPW has had a very big role in this over the years, Jay and before Jay. And I don't.
Not in the way I'm describing.
So if you're telling me this person, I still feel we need to see the numbers in November. I am very, very worried about November and what that tax rate is gonna be. I didn't hear anyone describe to me that we were in crisis mode for our buildings when we had our last budget hearing.
I'm not
So I'm
sure.
Okay, I'm asking, why can't, it is the end of September. Why can't we just wait a little bit longer and still maybe do some of the work in the background? Sounds to me like some of this really still needs to be flushed out. I mean, are we still gonna be hiring consultants? I mean, I imagine we're still gonna hire consultants. Just one person at $135,000 a year is not going to give a detailed report on every single building. That's not what they're gonna do. No way, not for that money. I'm not an expert, but they won't.
I would expect that, depending how you define
Yeah.
detail, I would expect they would give us a report on every building and tell us where we stand to some extent. Right now, we have not. I don't know where we stand.
I find it hard to believe we have nothing because we have capital improvement plans that didn't just come from the air. And, you know, whether anybody wants to admit it or not, when we did get capital plans, we got back up. So,
But
so
if you look at
again,
what those plans were, they were primarily fire trucks and police cars.
but we had building.
And when it comes,
We've had building.
when it comes to the building capital projects proposed, they're proposed by the police chief for the police department building and the fire chief for the fire department buildings. These are people, I mean, you got a chief in the room, you can ask him if he felt comfortable being the person to describe the needs of the building they occupied versus the cruisers they needed and the training they needed and the equipment they needed and the weapons they needed.
Right.
That's where your
But there
capital,
were other things in those buildings that people, and maybe DPW isn't the right person, but I think categorizing this as a crisis
I
right
haven't
now,
used that word.
or nothing has been done, is a little bit of an exaggeration for me. I think the council needs to think long and hard about approving this until we know what happens in November. It's not gonna change a whole lot in 6 or 8 weeks.
Nor
It's
am I
not.
saying it is.
That's my only point, and if
And I
it's,
would always expect
yeah.
the council to think long and hard
okay,
about every
I
decision.
appreciate that. I hope people do. Thank you. Thank you, President.
In the
Counselor.
order of hands pointed at me, President Dillon, then Councilor Campbell.
Sure, thank you. This is right in my wheelhouse. This is what I do every day for the company I work for. So important to make sure capital improvements are paid attention to.
Right.
I can go on and on about insurance audits that I have to go through every day. These buildings are insured, Charlie, correct?
I'm sure.
I don't know how we've got away without having insurance audits. They're costly. They'll kill you if you don't keep up with capital improvements. And I'm not gonna go on, I'm gonna bring up one last point. We've talked more about a roof on a building that we are thinking of buying than the almost 6 years I've been on this council about any property that we've owned probably 80 years plus. Thank you.
Councilor Campbell.
Thank you. A little bit, the reason is, that we haven't heard about it, is because it is the DPW's responsibility. It's the superintendent of public works responsibility, right in our charter. And I have it right here, and I have copies for everybody.
Make a motion to accept that as part of the permanent record.
I'm sorry.
I thought she was.
Yeah, the charter.
Is there a second?
It's almost 9.
Sorry.
Give me a
I
break.
didn't hear what
All
you
those in
said.
favor?
Aye, okay. So they are taking care of it. So, but before I go into that, hang on, before I go into that. It's not that I don't believe that we need a department. But I also agree with Councilor Mercer Bruin. I don't think right now. Can we wait? Can we wait till the spring to start looking at this? Not to spend another $135,000. Not even just that, but then the legacy costs that go into that. I mean, that's really important. We don't even have department heads making $135,000 here in the city. And, well, yeah, you know, right? We have other positions that haven't been filled for years and years. And the thing is, Mary, you started to allow those positions to be filled, but we have more positions that need to be filled. And I do believe at some point this is necessary. But I'm thinking not right now. Maybe the spring, let us look at it. Let's see what the tax is. How does that come out? But besides all of that, we have to figure out if it's even allowed under the charter, or do we have to do a home rule petition? Because this here will explain that right now, according to our charter, the construction, alteration, repair, care of public buildings is under the superintendent of public works. That's how it's written. If you want to change that, that's up to the committee, right? The city council, but you have to do a home rule petition to do that. I had talked to Mark about this, and he said, how is it that the IT department was able to be created? And it was able to be created because, when the charter was written, there
There was
isn't
no IT.
anything like it at all. So that's why that was allowed. Also, I think we have to be very careful when we're talking about the schools. And I'm not sure what you were talking about on some law, that we're able to combine. But as of right now, we're not according to the charter.
The law would allow us to combine facilities. It actually goes so far as to allow combining of finances between municipal and school side.
Oh,
So
okay.
Very much.
if the council and the committee were to take a vote, then that law would supersede the charter.
Oh,
And there's
okay.
language throughout the charter that talks about.
But I would have
General law
to, yeah, I would have to see that, because I'm just going by our charter, which obviously are our rules on what we can do and what we can't do.
Can I speak to that? please?
Yeah, no, and yeah, you can, in one more second. So I think we have to be careful here. Once again, I'm not saying that if the city council wants to move forward with a home rule petition, that we don't do that and that we don't change it. But as of right now, the superintendent of public works, according to our charter, his responsibilities, the powers, duties, and liabilities are with the superintendent of public works for the construction, alteration, repair, care of public buildings, except for the schools. Okay, so we have to hold on to that.
So we did review that when we proposed this.
Yeah, so that, I would love to
City
hear,
solicitor has a
yeah,
different interpretation of that.
yeah.
And there's sections in our charter that talk about the ability of our city council to essentially create a department, adding administrative offices, which we believe is how the IT department was created, how the purchasing department was created. There's several examples.
Correct.
We didn't go to Beacon
Yeah.
Hill to change our charter to create that. And if you can, Mark, I'll.
No, go ahead.
Second.
Take it.
I'm trying to draw a distinction between the couple of guys at the DPW, they're wonderful. If you need a picture hung, if you need your walls painted, if you need your rug changed, if you need your window repaired, they're jacks of all trades, they're wonderful. The two guys. They are not doing a long-term 30,000-foot inquiry into the status of our buildings. They're simply not. And I'll tell you that our superintendent nor our deputy are doing that. And I've talked to them. I've sought their input into this proposal here. And they assure me that that is not what they do. They do the care and the maintenance, but they're not doing the long-term feasibility status of our buildings. Nobody is doing that. I think Mark will tell you that there's a difference in the interpretation of the language here. We're not talking about taking something from them. They can still continue to do the maintenance and the things they do, but there's nobody doing the thing I'm talking about doing.
But you can create the department under the superintendent of public works and still have that feasibility department without making its own separate.
I just
Then
have a
you
real
wouldn't have
concern.
to, do what I would consider the home rule petition.
And we looked at that. I'll let you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Well, the director, there is a big distinction between what the mayor is proposing and what is in the charter. The provision calls for a facilities manager under two 194 that states, you're right, they have control of the construction, alteration, repair, and care of public buildings. That to me are the two guys that come and fix the window. The care to me is the cleaning of it. We're talking about a distinct, separate department that we're not replacing this person and we're not overturning this particular provision of the code. We're saying this is all new and it's a different job description. That's why I found the distinction was sufficient, that you wouldn't need a home rule to allow for that position.
But then why wouldn't you have it under the superintendent of public works? Because then it seems like that makes more sense. That's what our charter, how it was
I think
written.
the charter was written back in the day when there were 4 roads, 8 streetlights, and a
One
building
building.
and a half.
And a telegraph system.
And
One
television.
As evidence.
The reality is, the scope of work that I'm describing is not something that fits underneath the Department of Public Works superintendent. The reality is, he's got too much to
He's got
do.
enough to do.
This is one of the seemingly dozens of things he has to do. They have I think we were down this road before. This council actually approved a facilities manager position for $80,000 more than a year ago. And it never got filled because I think people saw the wisdom. Don't go down that road. That's not where you put it. That would be a mistake. That's the logic we used when we came here. And we did look at the charter issues. And we have an opinion from our city solicitor that that's not a conflict. That's not something we would be in violation.
Just one more comment. Okay, I mean, everybody can read it themselves and it's pretty clear that I feel anything care is what it's saying, care of a building, you know. But once again, just one last thing, for the superintendent of public works, whether he wants it under him or not, you're still creating you're still creating the department. It's still you're still allowing this person that you want to do what it is you're talking about. It's just that the superintendent would oversee it, but this person would still run the department as you would want it run.
Not as I would want.
Not you, but I don't understand. If the job was the job, he
There's
would
no-
need to do that particular job.
There's no provision in there of an overall analysis of the life expectancy of these buildings. That's really what we're talking about, right? That is not in that definition. That's why I found a distinction between the two. And now you create a department that's outside, specifically on purpose, outside the public works, so that they can do these things and report to him as to what is needed and when it's needed.
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
the
it's pretty clear that they're, well, at least it seems like they tried to grab everything that they could think of about buildings to put in this, but that's just my opinion. Okay, yeah, thank you.
Councilor Furlow, thank you for your
Really,
patience.
I'll shrink it down.
Thank
really
you for your
well.
patience. I
I
appreciate it.
made poor capital asset decisions as police chief, because all I know is if it's hot
it's
in the
leaking.
summer, the air conditioner's broken, I need a new air conditioner. If it's cold in the winter, the heater's broken, put a new heating system in. I made poor decisions. I replaced a $25,000 compressor when all I needed was to remove a block. And Gallagher HVAC replaced the condenser for $25,000, it still didn't work. Steve Lorman pulled out a $10 thing and put it in.
Filter.
And I don't even know what's filtered. Thank you. I mean, I made poor decisions. Lenny was great to me. But even in the Woburn Police Station, there's 3 air conditioning systems, three different air conditioning systems. One for the cell block, one for downstairs, one for the second floor. The ability to manage it is beyond any one individual. The 2 guys from building maintenance that hang a picture, paint a wall, move a desk, fix a window. And I'm not you guys make your own decision. I'm just saying I made some real bad decisions as police chief, because I can't even change a light bulb.
Well, from the chair, Councilor Furlow, I'd commend you for falling on the sword for that one, because it's not too often in public life that folks in public service admit when they're wrong. So
Appreciate that.
Statute of
I
limitations.
hope it doesn't show up in the ballot.
Councilor Viola.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, I'm having a tough go with this one, knowing that we do have this looming financial crisis in the future with taxes going up. So with that, already taken phone calls from residents that are already against it from in Ward 7 alone. But I will keep an open mind as this goes forward to see how this works out in the future.
So just to that point, currently in the budget for FY '25, there is $83,000 that was there to fund a facilities manager, lower level within DPW position that had not been filled. That money is there. If it was this council's desire that we essentially use that money to fund this proposed position, assuming the person wouldn't even be hired until November, December at this point, you've got the money if you'd like to. That's not the issue. If this council would rather try to fill the $83,000 facilities manager position within the DPW to oversee the two gentlemen who are hanging the pictures and doing all the things the chief just described. Well, we haven't yet, but if you really wanted to, okay, then you'd be using that money. And at that point, it wouldn't be available to fund this other proposed position. But I would respectfully suggest that you'd be making a mistake to do that, because you're somewhere around the 5,000, 7,000 foot level, but you're nowhere near the 30,000 we need to be, and you just went and spent 83 grand.
While I have the floor. Now, I'm assuming you've looked into other cities and towns that have somebody with this job description. What are they being paid compared to this 135?
Well, we have our HR director here. We did review all this. We reviewed how other communities deal with this. I would tell you that the vast majority of them, it's a standalone department outside of DPW. There were a couple where it was within, but the vast majority were outside. And we began trying to compare some comps, and we came up with some numbers. And then we turned and watched as the schools did the same thing with when they hired women. And their range was somewhere between 125 and 145, and they ended up settling at 135 or 133.5, something close to that. And that's why we, based on the comps and the process that the school department went through, that's why we settled on the 135. And it may well be that that is higher than some of our department heads make. I hear you. But that might also be making the point that some of our department heads are underpaid. Not that this is too much, that they're too low.
Now, these cities and towns that are comps, how do they compare building-wise to us? Like, how many buildings compared to us could you?
Sean, do you remember that the comps we used, there was, I can tell you.
Yeah, so
Wait a
we
second.
had, surrounding communities and communities that we, found had separate facilities departments or facilities departments under, the DPW. It varied, but, a lot of them had combined their school and town facility built, departments, which obviously, like the mayor said, we'd have to take the vote, and, the school committee would have to be behind it. So, as far as, I can get you the actual data on
Could you
like
please?
the number of buildings and square footage and things like that. I don't have it with me, but I know I have it.
I'll tell you the communities that we looked at. Tewksbury, Arlington, Belmont, Bedford, Danvers, Winchester, and Lexington. And then Lou, you're familiar with Lexington.
Yes, sir.
And if I showed you the staff that they had within their feasibility departments, director, superintendent, supervisor, coordinator, manager.
Not really staff.
I'm saying it starts as a department. And the reason I use that analogy is that's what we did with IT. We brought in Dave Mastronati, and he was a department of one, and now we have 3 people. And I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, I was just seeing how it compares, like, with their building, the amount that they have compared to us roughly, with that big ask of the 135,000.
Yeah, I would suggest that the communities I just mentioned have fewer buildings than we do. Just take judicial notice of that fact. It's Bedford, it's Winchester, Lexington. We have more buildings than they do.
Thank you.
Councilor Toro. Thank you. Just one real quick point. So my short time on the council, I think whenever we have a legal question brought before us, we always request advice from our city solicitor. So in regards to the home rule petition discussion and such, with all due respect to Councilor Campbell, I believe if our city solicitor has the interpretation that it's not needed, I think is that, I think we should take his advice. But that's just my own opinion. I'm sorry, I'm gonna make one other point.
No, it's okay.
Similar to Council President Jeff Dillon, I'm in the construction field. I own property myself. I do, and Councilor DeMambro, I do understand the need for someone to look over these buildings, and I deal with people on a daily basis that don't renovate or tend to their homes, for years and years and years, and it costs a lot more money over time than addressing these issues up front. I support it. I understand the concern with the position and spending the money. I do like the idea of utilizing the funds from the facility director position to cover some of the costs associated with this position. But we'll see how the council moves forward on it. So, thank you.
Councilor Mercer Bruin.
Thank you. First, I just want to comment on some of the comments that have been made about the DPW and fixing windows and, putting a couple of nails and things. Those guys, some of them are very, very skilled laborers. So on their behalf,
Yes.
I'd like to say thank you to everything that they do.
We're talking about specific.
And secondly, in terms
Colleen,
of.
we're talking about specific people, not the DPW.
Hold on now.
Okay, in
I'll
terms of.
recognize you after to respond.
In terms of, so noted, chief, but all I've heard is, yes, they do a couple of things and the city, our buildings are not crumbling around us. They're not. We have time to digest this and think about it. And in terms of the city solicitor's opinion, this council also can weigh in on our opinion. And keep in mind, the city solicitor is appointed by the mayor, right? So that's something we've always kept in mind over the years, as long as I've been on the city council. We have to think independently. It's literally our job to think independently from the executive's office. And lastly, I would like to point out, the $80,000, depending on where we are with the taxes, when the tax rate comes out, we might need that $80,000 to provide some relief to the very taxpayers we know who are going to be hit very hard, especially our senior population. So I'm not saying this isn't a good thing. I'm saying we don't need to rush into it. And I'd also like to point out that Shauna has a whole pile of papers over there. The mayor has a whole pile of papers over there. What have we gotten to render this decision aside from what's on here?
No one's asking you to render a decision tonight.
Okay.
And historically, that's what committees are for, so that's why we're here.
Okay.
This is probably the third or fourth time now where this issue has come up. This is the process. I'm submitting to the process. I'm more than happy to work with this body to provide all the information you need. And between now and the next council meeting, if you have any questions at all, you had a request for any more information, please,
I just find
ask.
it,
I'm
I
more than
find
happy
it,
to work with you.
with all due respect, Mayor, I find it interesting that we never get any attachments to any of these things, ever.
Yeah.
Well, you're asking us to create a $135,000 position who will report to you solely, your political appointments, right? But we have you did all this research. We're not privy to it. We don't know any of that information. And when I asked you.
That's why we're in committee, for that very process. That's why we're here. I'm not requiring.
Okay, I think I
more
made
than
my
happy to
point
work
about
with
the
you.
documentation.
More than happy to work
Yeah,
with you on any
right,
documentation.
The
you
council, I hope you'll tread lightly. We have some things looming over us. This thing is not gonna disappear. We have time.
Did you like versus?
Well, I just want to clarify my point when I talk about people banging nails. I wasn't talking about the DPW. There's a very talented buildings maintenance people that are very good, a licensed carpenter. And he can fix and he can do that. Strategic HVAC systems and plumbing systems and electrical systems and technology systems. Real good guy. He'll say, that's bigger than me. And we get from
Thank you for the clarification.
bigger than me to an outside contractor is where I flounder and fend for myself. Lenny would hold my hand, but there's some decisions in that gap from outside contractor to bigger than me that I needed as a department head, I needed help. I'm not advocating, we vote on this right now, I'm not advocating everybody make their own decision, but I wasn't disparaging the two folks from the buildings maintenance people. They're just, their capacity is great at what they do, but it's limited at what they do.
Duly noted, Chief.
Can I just
Councilor
say-
DeMambro was next in line, and I'll recognize Councilor Campbell. Go
Thank
ahead.
you.
The oversight that I see with experience, 10 years in facilities, you're looking at some point, overseeing 24 buildings, school side, city side. To the chief's point, you need to be able to have foresight with these buildings. And the buildings aren't crumbling. But now that I'm on the BCPC, some of the schools, according to UNESCO, they are crumbling.
But we're not talking about, the school.
I understand, but this would oversee all the buildings.
No, it
So-
wouldn't. There's no vote that says it will.
Well, in time it would. See, UNESCO comes in and they put together their portfolio that says you need this, you need that, you need that, you need this. And it Pearl Harbors us every single time DNESCO's called in to do a full study that costs $400,000 to $600,000 to pull a study. And to get some sort of 200-page review on a structure or structures. And then when we're looking at what it's going to cost to either renovate or knock down and rebuild, it's astronomical. It's in the hundreds of millions of dollars. With something like this, that would be bird dogging this, and let me just bring up some other point. The superintendent of public works, I think he's a little stretched with a lot of the projects that are going on, residential, commercial, and industrial throughout our city, as well as chasing utility companies that keep stringing us along forever and ever just to move a stupid pole. I mean, these are all things he works on a daily basis. I was at his office a week ago. It's a wonder he doesn't get buried with an avalanche with all the plans and everything he's got in his office. They're piled to the ceiling. And he's like, this is my office. And if you walked in there, you'd be like, I don't even know a rhyme or reason how he gets anything done. There's so much paper in here and rolled plans. So on top of that, you want him to overlook, according to a charter that was written in 1914, that even uses the word telegraph in it. And again, what'd you have? 8 gaslight poles and a couple of, municipal buildings and some horses to take care of or look after? And then it was updated, the last update on this was 1953. I believe the city's grown since then with our buildings and our structures. These are all things that this department head would take and oversee and have the ability as an, I would say almost an engineer certification because of all the different building technologies that you have to be very well versed in, as well as the codes that go along with each and every application. You have plumbers, you have electricians, you have HVAC. This guy's got to know a little bit, but not a lot, about each and every single avenue and area and aspect of a commercial building. That's what this is for. This isn't, a money grab. This isn't to, give somebody a job. It's also to have somebody oversees all our buildings and enable your superintendent, DPW director, to take care of what he needs, as well as Rennie with his 17 things that he's got to look after, and Lenny Burnham at the 5,000, 10,000 foot view. This guy's would be at 50,000 saying, look, this is coming down the pike. Mayor, you need to be aware of this. Superintendent Duran, you need to be aware of this. This is coming down the pike. I'm warning you. And this is how much it's going to cost, and we're going to start lining it up. Instead of bringing in the DNESCOs of the world that are going to charge you $600, maybe even more, to, again, every couple of years, review these buildings, and then when we get the review after 9 months, they may have the study, to be shocked and awed at the price tags. And then we're all scrambling going, Jesus, how do we afford this? How can we afford $100 million? How do we afford $1,000 a square foot? That's what this guy would be for. It's a preemptive strike on all of that. And he could possibly nip it in the bud to say, you know what? If we wait 10 years to do this, it's gonna cost $1 million. We do it right now, it could cost $100,000. So in essence, yes, you pay the money up front to have this position, but in the long run, he could save you tens of millions of dollars. And it's something I think we should all truly consider. Thank you.
Councilor Campbell and then Councilor Demers would like to speak.
Yeah, just for the city's council's recollection, and I've been on the council for almost 10 years. In the past, we have always respected the city solicitor's opinions.
We've questioned it.
But, no, hang on. But there were many a time that we did not go along with our city solicitor. And city solicitor Doucette would know that. And it's our duty to take this information, whether we're attorneys or not, and to read this and to do our research, take what the city solicitor is saying, and then say, okay, wait a minute, am I seeing this in a different way? In the past, we've had 2 or 3 attorneys on the city council. So actually, I would love to, Councilor Ferrullo, because you happen to be an attorney, to be looking at it as well and see what your view. That's because I respect you, Councilor Ferrullo. But it's our responsibility to take this information and look at it, and we don't have to agree with it because the city solicitor is saying that. What does it say in our charter? I mean, that's what's important. Our views could be different. And then, Councilor DeMambro, I hope you're not saying that we should throw our charter out, because that's more or less what you just, well, you said it says telegraph and things like that, because then that means, well, no, that's true. That's true, because otherwise we should throw out our Constitution, which is of the United States, which is a couple hundred years old. But these are our laws. This is what our laws is, whether we're using different words like telegraph and things like that. Okay, that should be up, but still.
Joanne, could I just to your point?
Yeah, but
Real
that is
quick.
something that we need to go by.
I'm asking you to take a look at how I'm trying to describe this building feasibility position. It's above and beyond what they're contemplating in the charter.
I agree, but I
The
disagree
one
with you.
building. That's all I'm saying. I think if you,
But I'm not saying I'm against the feasibility department. I am not. I do believe we need it. From what everybody else here has said, we need it for sure.
But what I'm saying
saying,
is-
how do we go about doing it, and do we have to do it right now?
I understood. And reasonable minds can disagree, and I'm not demanding an answer tonight. That's
Yeah.
not how this works. I know that. I was
Yeah.
on that side. I know.
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
I'm
you were
saying-
one of the attorneys that used to be on here.
Well, what I'm saying is, I'm trying to describe a position that doesn't exist and isn't contemplated by that. That is it's like,
Even get to the airport early.
the DPW is responsible for the roads and the water and you know, the poles and the, yeah, to some extent, the buildings. So when we have daily needs, we rely on them to take care of them. I'm trying to describe a position that's above and beyond that. That's not contemplated by the language you're looking at. I'm trying to make the distinction that this.
But it's not a distinction. I know you are.
But I.
And you disagree, right. I understand that. So maybe we need to relook at how it's being said, exactly, I know what you're looking for, but in my view, everything that you've said is what our charter says. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not against this position. I do believe we need it, but I don't believe we need it at this time until we see what our tax rate is for the residents. And we're not in a rush, and our buildings aren't crumbling, you know, and we know that, and I know you're not saying that.
No.
But I just would like to bring that out. Yeah, thank you.
All right, from the chair, just briefly. My only concern, well, one of my concerns here is, you know, the last thing anybody wants to see is approving a position and then we continue to go out for consultants for the very same reason. So that's a concern that I would have, because if the taxpayers think that this is gonna save us money from moving away from having a consultant every 5, 10 years, whatnot. Maybe tightening the language, I don't know. Auditor Doherty, do you know off the top of your head, and I know this is kind of putting you on the spot, but what the outstanding debt service that the city has on facilities right now?
On citywide?
Yeah.
Or just, citywide, it's about, total principal and interest, about $7 million.
$7 million, all right. And I'm just pointing that out because we still have outstanding debt liabilities of $7 million and we're arguing over $135,000 right now. I know, but I'm just looking at the information that I've received and the comment from everybody. Under the facilities DPW budget, we have $83,000 allotted and the DPW has not filled that position.
Correct.
So doing simple arithmetic, we're down to $52,000 where we could give you a transfer of funds to make this a reality.
To make that position that currently exists a reality under the DPW.
Correct.
That's not the position I'm describing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Understood, but I'm just looking at soup to nuts money-wise. We're not talking about language. I know we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because from the chair, we could conceivably approve an ordinance and then not fund the position. I just want everybody to know that that's also a reality because there's been a lot of finance talk in ordinance this evening and we're talking about the position itself. So I just wanted to bring everybody back a little bit. I would prefer to see the agreement already executed with the schools. To get the cities and schools under one roof with the facilities, I'd feel a lot more comfortable. Because I also do remember that we just passed one of the largest budget increases in history in the city of Woburn for one department. And I think at the very least, there should be some commitment from the school department where they all seemed very open-minded on it. So I don't know what may have changed since then, but I would like at least them to go on record as to why they don't want us to be even more efficient, because I think having somebody doing the schools and then paying somebody $135,000 to go talk to another person making $135,000 to schedule joint operations is kind of ludicrous when we could be doing it all under one roof and under roof and then hiring people to actually implement those changes.
Would you propose in that scenario that if we get the blessing of the school committee and the city council to combine operations, that there'd be a Lenny Burnham in the schools and a Lenny Burnham on the city side and somebody overseeing it all?
Well, under the current structure of your budget, if you're asking us for another $135,000, that $83,000 is in the budget to exist in that role, no?
That's not the same role, I don't think either.
Right,
I don't even
but
think
that that is literally facilities maintenance for $83,000. So wouldn't that?
We just saw the school department hire a facilities person. They hired them at $135,000. You're not gonna get that person at $83,000. I think that's why we didn't hire him. The $83,000 position is somewhere below, significantly below the Lenny Burnham position. And I'm not asking a loaded question, I was asking a genuine question. What is the structure you envision? Because ultimately, I think there is a facilities, Lenny Burnham of the schools, and a Lucy Burnham on the municipal side. And there's a combined force of a department head in charge of all facilities, 24 buildings in the city. I don't
mean,
think
my
that's
own,
a stretch in 2024.
right, but my own personal opinion on that is more leaning towards a move that large should be presented to us in the form of your budget.
Yeah, and again, that only happens with the blessing of the school committee and the city council by law. I've begun conversations with the school committee on that. I do not have agreement from them, just initial discussions.
Well, if that's all I have,
Council Demers, can I
Councilor
promise,
Mercer,
30
go on.
seconds, I
Yep.
promise. Mayor Concanon, I'm sure those conversations are ongoing, and I appreciate that you're having them. I ask you to continue to, because if we were talking about combining, I too would take a different look at it. I'd still want to wait till November to see where we're at. But I would be much more inclined if these were put together. So
Well,
I
the beauty of the
appreciate
law is that it doesn't have to be school committee, then city council. It could be city council, then school. If a member of this council wanted to sponsor an ordinance change invoking that chapter and section, that would jumpstart the process.
The school committee, with all due respect, I think the school committee would feel like that's a shot across the bow. They have to have buy-in on this thing, I think.
Well, that's why I started with it.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to answer
Yeah.
what
And
I
I
thought I
suppose
heard
we
from
could,
Councilor
yeah,
Morris.
we could take that, we've always had the ability to take that action, but I think
I
that,
personally have no problem lobbying the school committee on it.
yeah.
I think from the chair, I mean, my advice would be that we leave this in committee.
That's what I expected, just to be clear.
Yep. Is there any other questions or comments for the mayor or Solicitor Salvati?
Could we get a copy of some of those comps for the other towns, if it's with Shauna or whatever?
And the
Just
law,
so we
in
can
that law
start
that
doing
you're
it.
talking about. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Was that for item 3 as well, Mr. Chairman, or? Both remaining committee?
It would make, well,
Yeah, that
I'm not the chairman.
Just for the purposes of organizing these thoughts, is there a motion that we lay items number 2 and 3 on the table?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, next up on the agenda, the order amending Woburn Municipal Code, Section 2-180, base salaries for various base salaries.
So this is just more of a housekeeping matter. The base salaries have to be in the code, and they're wrong. So we're correcting them to reflect what they currently are. Some of them will have to be changed every year because they change every year, and there's just no way around it. And that brings us back to the charter. So we are following the charter, and we're correcting those base salaries. So we did remove a couple, which are removed by law, by statute. So I think I don't know how many are in front of you, maybe 6 that have to be approved.
It's 9 salaries, I believe.
All right.
Deputy auditor, the budget analyst in the auditor's office, secretary paralegal for the city solicitor, deputy fire chief, human resources assistant for the human resources department, assistant director of the Woburn Public Library, deputy police chief, deputy superintendent of public works, and the water treatment plant manager.
Yeah, just to be clear, I think a couple of those are unfilled. Is that right, Sean?
Yeah, that's what the numbers that are proposed there are the numbers that are in the budget, that were in the budget.
Questions or comments? Councilor Papalato and then Councilman.
Just 2 questions. One, what's the total increase we're talking about here?
I think it's.
5, what does that say?
So to that effect, I believe this is just codifying it in the Woburn Municipal Code, and all these salaries are already budgeted in the
These are
current
already
budget.
budgeted.
So there would be no
increase.
no increase to the operating budget.
Okay.
Yeah,
These people are
Auditor
already
Doherty?
paid.
Just that point, all of these have already been included in the current budget passed in June. But secondly, these are, it's a compounding impact because the ordinance we have on file says any non-union, non-department heads automatically defaults to SEIU. So the positions budget-wise, every year go up by that same contract. So that's how we start to drift away from what we last approved in the city ordinance.
So in essence, we would have to do this annually.
We have to, there's not a way to say, oh, just adjust it automatically.
You can't put a percentage.
And I will say, this is the same scenario that we do with the non-union, non-department. Because we have to adjust those every year once it's a settlement from the Teamsters, which they also fall.
So rather than a financial move, this is a housekeeping move.
Absolutely.
So is this something that should have come through the budget process, or that's a separate?
No, the budget part is separate. This is just, by the way it states, we have to have in ordinance the salary, the current salary on record. And that hadn't been adjusted.
And these salaries are all union negotiated.
I guess the recommendation too, and as we go forward, would be just how we do the non-union department. Annually, every time there's a
Probably do a
settlement,
part and parcel.
have these policies.
I was just gonna make that clarification because we do this every year.
Correct.
So,
Or at least every settlement period. We usually try to project it out to 3 years when we believe the salary will be in those positions.
Any other questions or comments? What's the will of the committee?
second.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Motion adjourned.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye. Nice job, there,
Outstanding
Chairman.
job there.
Guarantee you there wouldn't be a no vote on that vote for adjournment, I'll tell you.
You guys done?
No. No. Well, you can stick around.
Yeah, if you want to stay.
We gotta all take
Way more,
we gotta take a collection for Gordon's physical therapy for his carpal tunnel. Can you imagine, that was all that debate and I hadn't spoke yet.
All right, I'm Counselor Viola, I'm Chair of the Finance Committee. With me on the committee is Counselor Campbell, Counselor Demers, Counselor Ferrulo, Counselor Mercer.
Make a motion that we dispense with the reading of the previous meeting's minutes?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Second item on the agenda is order transferring $525,345.15 from the mayor's salary adjustment account to police regular salary account for contract settlement, Superior Police Union. Mr. Mayor.
Chairman, thank you. So this is a recently settled contract with the superior police officers, sergeant and above. This was a 3-year-old settlement. This is the contract that would have started in 2021. So effectively, by the time we settled and signed this, it was expired and was starting again. So when I got here, this was headed to arbitration. It had been lingering for 2.5 years. We put the team together, and I want to give my appreciation to Shauna and Mark and Charlie, the team that helps with these contract negotiations. We were able to avoid arbitration and reach a settlement on this 3-year-old contract at a reasonable and fair settlement. And this is the amount for 3 years. 2021 to 2024. We're now beginning negotiations with his body now going forward. So I have Shauna, Charlie, and Mark here if you have any particular questions. Obviously, this is something we tend not to go into great detail in this open body.
Yeah, of course.
Make a motion that the order transferring $525,345.15 from mayor's salary adjustment.
Second.
All those in
Sent out
favor?
to pass.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is order transferring $1.5 million from the stabilization fund account to Woburn City Hall Annex Building Project account. And for the purchase and rehab of City Hall Annex Building, 6 Common Street, Woburn, Mass. Mr. Mayor.
Again, this is the companion piece to that matter we talked about earlier. I would ask respectfully that this be sent out not to pass, so we can take the next steps.
Same action, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion
Aye.
carries.
Oh,
Oh,
these are nice. Hands.
you're not on the finance bill.
Oh, my apologies, my apologies.
So motion carries 5-0. To pass. Next item on the agenda is order transferring $135,000 from mayor's salary adjustment account to building feasibility director salary account.
I would suggest.
Make a motion that the matter is laid on the table.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Stuck around. Good job on that.
Yeah, okay. Oh,
You did a German.
here it comes, Shauna, finally. You've been so patient.
Get to that point where it's looking like.
Joanne, there's a letter from Shauna that needs to be.
Anything.
Okay, thank you.
What do you think?
I call the Committee on Personnel to order. On the committee is Councilor Demers, Councilor Toro, and myself, Councilor Campbell, as chair.
Make a motion we dispense with the previous meeting's minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. We also have a communications from Shauna, our Human Resource Director. If we could have a motion to accept that?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. And if quickly we could have Shauna come up, that would be wonderful.
Poor
Once
Shauna.
again, thank you
That's
for
all right.
being
We're
so
just taking you
patient.
out of order.
Oh, no, well, I was here, the mayor wanted me here.
Oh, okay. All right.
Not a problem.
Okay, so this is in reference to the vacancy of the position of the city engineer.
Yes, so we posted the position, August 22nd, 2024 through September 13th, 2024, at the salary that's in the union contract, which is $119,656.12. That salary is based off a 32.5-hour work week. We ordered 3 applicants. All 3 applicants do not have a Massachusetts licensed professional engineer, which is a requirement of the job.
two of the applicants have experience in engineering, but in other countries with equivalent degrees, and the other applicant has experience as an estimator and project engineer, but not in this. So, I would say we don't have qualified applicants.
Yes.
I'm not on the committee.
Oh, you're not. Anybody on,
Make a mo-
yes.
make a mo- Oh, Councilor.
Councilor
I'll
Toro.
defer to him
Um,
on my motion.
Shauna, do you think the reasoning behind us not receiving qualified candidates for the position, where does our salary stand compared to other
Yeah,
cities, right?
so-
Is that the issue?
Yeah, so I think it is the issue. I think it's hard because our salary is based off of a 32.5 hour work week, so like hourly wise, we're right around the average, but most people are looking at that as a full-time 40-hour salary, and I mean, I'm sure if you talk to Jay Corey, he would say he typically worked more than 32.5 hours a week.
About 80.
You're right, so yeah, I do think it's driven off of salary.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, Councilor.
So this basically directly has to do with the fact that we haven't revisited the non-union department heads?
Well,
Or is he? a
he's union, so we're in contract negotiations now, with the whole union as a group. It's certainly something we could consider discussing on the side as well, if, because we're obviously not at a settlement with them, so.
Mhm.
And it could delay our process even longer if we wait for the contract to settle.
So we're pretty much hard capped in terms of how much we can offer?
Right now, yes, yep.
So is it your feeling that even if we went out for more resumes again, that we might not receive anything?
At this salary, I mean, we can continue to run it and see if anything comes in, but I don't expect that we'll get many qualified candidates, if any, at this salary.
Shauna, where do we post?
Yep, so we posted this on, on the city website, we posted it on MMA, which
Yeah.
is the Mass Municipal Association, and then the engineering division of the
Okay.
MMA.
Thank you.
Yep,
Can I have a motion to allow the other?
Make a motion to allow
council-
members that are non-voting members on the council to speak.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, yeah,
Thank you.
Councilor
Just
Mercer
briefly, Shauna, when we were interviewing for the DPW position, there was a couple of candidates in that pool, one of which I know has the credentials, I
Right.
think, for this position.
Yep.
Have we reached out to her actively?
sure, so I haven't reached out to her directly, but I did have a conversation with her after the deputy, process completed, and she had, I don't know if you guys remember, but she had been a teacher, and she had retired through that community. And so she was asking me questions about if she were to enter the municipal workforce again, how that would work.
Impacts on her pension.
And it has an impact on the pension, so
Oh.
my guess is that is the reason that she decided not to apply.
Okay, well, I thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, oh, yes. Councilor
Real
Perrullo.
quickly, I was trying to do the math so I could talk intelligently. Instead, I'm just gonna go like usual. I was faced with this issue in my last 5 years I spent with the state. I needed to adjust some people that were paid at 37.5.
Yeah.
And one of the HR workarounds there was they gave me the ability to pay them to 40, which gave them enough of a bump to put them at parity with other jobs. Do we have the ability to move this from a 32.5 to a 37.5 to bring it, to give it a bump? I was trying to figure what percentage
Yeah,
that
so
would be.
again, negotiation with the union. And in the Teamsters group, there's only one position that's 40 hours, and then all the rest in Teamsters A, which is what this position would fall under, are 32.5. So it's I mean, it's certainly something that can be discussed, but it would have to be negotiated.
Understood, thank you.
Well, this is interesting.
Yeah, just this point, I think.
I guess at
we
this
just have to
point,
keep
we-
trying.
I was gonna say.
Keep posting and.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, Councilor Mercer.
And maybe because of the union job, we can't do this, but is there a way that we can have someone interview or change the description so some of the educational requirements can be hit, some of those certifications during employment, if they sign I'll stick around here for so many years thing?
Yeah, so I would have to definitely brush up on what you need to become a licensed professional engineer, but I believe you need to have an engineer overseeing your work. And being in this position, you wouldn't have that opportunity, but I can research that to
Yeah,
make sure, but I believe that's how you become a licensed
Okay.
PE.
Them learning their job.
Okay. I guess maybe we just throw it out there again, and hope that we get somebody else at this point, and then really just, I'm not sure. Keep thinking. Do you have anything, Mr. Mayor? Any comment on this?
I've been briefed by Shauna on the status of negotiations. There's a lot of moving parts. This is one of the moving parts, the salary for the engineer as well as the number of hours. And we would rather not pick them off, one off. It's better to make it part of a collective decision and a settlement.
We do meet with them next week, so
Is
there's a chance there could be.
Is there the anticipation that, I mean, I don't wanna get into specifics of negotiations because nobody wants to be in that in an open forum. But what would the recommendation of you be, Shauna? Do we repost this over the next, 45 days, or do we hold off until there's an agreement? And then force Jay Corey's hairline to recede another inch and a half?
I mean, I don't think it hurts to have it posted over the next 30 to 45 days while we are in negotiations, and there's a chance that we have an update from negotiations that changes where we go with the posting, but at least we have the feeler out there in case there is.
Right, because I mean, is the possibility there that we could leave it open-ended and then just update it
Yeah,
if
Yeah.
the financial terms change?
yeah.
Yeah, I think that might be,
I agree with that.
I'll do that in the form of a motion to direct the HR director to do that.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, aye. The ayes have it. Okay, so
Thank
that's what we will do.
Awesome,
Motion
sounds
to-
good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, guys.
Be open.
Thank you for following.
Thank you, Shauna.
Thank you, Shauna.
Shauna, thank you for
Did you
your.
motion to adjourn?
Thank you for
I
waiting.
just did right now, yeah. Motion to
Second.
adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it.